네, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 서울 포럼 2025를 찾아주신
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here at the Seoul Forum 2025. I am an announcer from Seoul Economic TV, Kim Soo-hyun, and I'll be your MC for today.
네, 그럼 오늘 서울 포럼
We will now
2025
begin the official program for Day 2 of Seoul Forum 2025. This forum brings together leading scholars, business leaders, politicians, and academic experts from around the world to discuss new growth strategies for a better world and the future of Korea's development. Today's official program for Day 2 will revolve around the theme of the Seoul Forum 2025, All on AI, The Future is Now. The program consists of keynote lecture and 3 thematic sessions and special lecture. Let me introduce the schedule for today. We will begin with an opening speech by Mr. Son Do-young, CEO of Seoul Economic Daily, as well as keynote speech by Professor Chun. The main session will consist of lectures and discussions on each session. First session is Lifestyle Revolution AI Integrating into Everyday Life. After the first session, a 2-hour luncheon will be held here in the Dynasty Hall. At 1:30 p.m., session 2 will begin, titled Brain Revolution, the Era of Generative AI. From 3:30 p.m., session 3, titled Post-Human Revolution, the Era of Humanoid, will begin, and that will conclude the prepared sessions for the day. Without further ado, let us begin the first part of the official program for today. We will entertain opening address by Mr. Son Do-young, CEO of Seoul Economic Daily and Seoul Economic TV. Please welcome Mr. Son with a big hand. Good morning. I am Son Do-young, CEO of Seoul Economic Daily and Seoul Economic TV. It's an honor to discuss a new future together. I am truly delighted to welcome you to the Seoul Forum 2025 in many numbers at this early hour. We marked the second day of the forum. Yesterday, over 500 distinguished guests attended the opening ceremony and listened to lectures from scholars. In today's main session, we will explore the insights of global and domestic AI experts. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who are participating in today's program. Special thanks to Professor Sebastian Thrun from Stanford University, who has traveled to Korea to give a keynote lecture. He was supposed to give the lecture yesterday, but he's going to give a wonderful keynote lecture today, and I'm sure that you'll be able to gain a lot of insights from his keynote speech. I also thank overseas speakers, as well as the speakers and panelists who have joined us for the Seoul Forum. Distinguished guests, Korea stands at the eye of the storm created by AI. The world is pouring its top talent and massive capital into AI for its evolution, and AI is indeed deeply permeating our society and industries. Defying previous predications that AI could never match humans, AI is now emerging with physical AI, surpassing human physical limits and presenting new opportunities. The speed of technological advancement is so rapid that even looking away for a moment makes it hard to catch up. What we need is to accurately recognize the impact and limitations of AI era and respond strategically. We must understand the technological trends of generative AI that has created this new era and analyze how it is being applied in various industries to create new value. We must also examine the possibilities and limitations of humanoids, which will soon become a reality. Today's forum will feature 3 main sessions to focus on the vast AI trends and serve as a stepping stone to prepare for this new era. The AI era presents both crises and opportunities for Korea. Korea, with its strength in advanced technologies, now stands at a crossroads in the most intense AI industry competition. Korea has strengths in cutting-edge semiconductor and autonomous driving technologies, as well as rich in IT infrastructure. If the government, business, citizens unite, the AI era can become a new golden age. However, Amidst fierce challenges from rival nations, the path Korea must take is long and arduous. With the US and China locked in a fierce Big Two rivalry, and countries like the UK, Singapore, and Canada aggressively pushing forward, even maintaining the position of a fast follower is difficult. Major nations and companies are sparing no expense in their investment to dominate the AI era. There are even grim analysis that Korea has fallen to the second tier in the fierce AI national race. Seoul Economic Daily intends to closely analyze the AI era through this forum and seek solutions to the challenges. We will examine how the world can safely enter the AI era together, what stance Korea should take in a tough global environment, and what urgent actions are needed to accelerate technological development. In particular, this forum has gathered many figures from leading global companies and advanced technological sector. We hope to gain insights into solutions for this era through the perspectives of industry leaders at the forefront of global high-tech competition. Once again, I sincerely thank all the distinguished guests and participants for attending the Seoul Forum 2025 main session program. Thank you.
감사합니다. 손동영 서울경제신문 서울경제 사장님의 개회.
Thank you very much. So that was the President and CEO Son Dong-young of Seoul Economic Daily. Thank you very much, and let's give him another big round of applause. Thank you, and now moving on to the next part of the presentation, and that is about looking into the future where there is going to be shared existence between humans and robotics. And it will be delivered by Professor Sebastian Srun, who is a professor at Stanford University and also the founder of Google X Waymo and currently the chair of Utah City. And he will tell us about designing the future, Google X, Waymo, and the AI frontier.
Thank you. Good morning, Seoul. Mr. CEO, Seoul Forum, dear panelists, dear session attendees, thank you for inviting me. I apologize for the hiccup with my transition to Korea, which was medical, but now I'm in good shape. I'm super delighted to be back here in Korea. Up front, before I give my talk, good for all of us. The AI age is just beginning, and there's so much work to be done here in Korea that I'll talk to in the end. I'm really excited to be here and see Korea taking the lead in the semiconductor infrastructure and other industries design, where I think you can make a unique contribution. I've been asked to tell you about my journey to self-driving cars and other technologies over the years, what I've learned, and the mistakes I've made. So I'm going to start 20 years ago, when AI was not a word that anyone used, self-driving cars didn't exist, and we literally had no clue what was yet to come. 20 years ago, the US government started a race called DARPA Grand Challenge. DARPA is an office that is the Advanced Research Project Agency. It was the entity that funded the development of the internet and stealth bombers. And they came to the conclusion that time was ready to try something audacious, which is build a car that could drive itself. They made a competition, and in 2004, the very first iteration of this competition took place. Can we take the sound down, please? Please, no sound.
30 seconds from history.
No sound, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sandstorm.
No sound, please. Thank you. This competition was a fierce competition of robot cars that most universities had built, trying to drive 140 miles through the Mojave Desert. What happened was something very different. The best vehicle made 7 miles and burned up in flames. So 20 years ago, you could have said there will never be self-driving cars. This is Caltech, a university in Southern California, with their vehicle. And these vehicles at the time were very experimental and very dumb. They had no smarts, no AI, no machine learning, very little sensing. But what they did do is they opened the path to a vision that is now changing the world as I speak, which is the self-driving car today is becoming a major industry in the United States and soon worldwide. My favorite example from those early days is UC Berkeley, Stanford's competitor, and here they are. That was UC Berkeley. So there was a state 21 years ago, I'd say. And then in the next 20 years, we really built up this technology in stages. The very first stage took place at Stanford University, where I created a class called Self-Driving Cars, and 20 graduate students would fearlessly help me build the very first Stanford self-driving car. And that car, too, ran into major problems. It was a Volkswagen at the time, and its sensing equipment is very reminiscent of what Waymo and other companies use today. It had cameras, it had LiDARs, it had radars, it had a big computer platform. Back in the day, the computers filled the entire trunk. It had GPUs, but it wasn't as advanced as today's technology. As we built the very first version using machine learning and AI, we had our good number of hiccups. This is the day when the New York Times visited, and we drove the car into a ditch. But eventually, we got to the point where the car was good enough to drive 130 miles, completely unmanned without a person inside. In this short video, you see the car traversing the Mojave Desert. It's driving itself. Behind it is a government emergency car that can stop it at any time. And in a duration of about 6 hours and 53 minutes, the car was able to drive these 132 miles successfully and emerged as the very first winner of a DARPA Grand Challenge. Again, no one paid attention. No one saw this coming, except for 1,000 die-hard roboticists sitting in the Mojave Desert on this cold October day and seeing these cars coming back from an incredible journey that took many, many hours to complete. So here's our car, finally, almost 7 hours later, reaching the finishing line. And from there, things moved faster. The very first thing that we did as a Stanford team is we started a company that sold to Google and became Google Street View. And Street View already had this technology of ability to sense and measure. It just didn't have the robotic side of it. So we drove all the streets in the world using these cameras. And then inside Google, I started a team called Google Chauffeur, which was a very early self-driving car team that today is known as Waymo. And as I speak, this month, Waymo is completing 800,000 commercial trips in the state of California alone. And it's way on its way to become the #1 ground transportation company in all of California. So back in the day, we all believed this would happen. It's incredibly gratifying to see it actually happen commercially. Waymo itself took many, many iterations. One of the most impactful things we did early on is define our own challenge. And by challenge, we defined a problem that was so hard that we believe we could not solve. That problem was to drive all the streets in California, all the public streets. And remember, at this point, the best anyone had ever seen was an empty desert. But driving in the middle of a city with lots of kids running around sounded way too dangerous. The Google founders carved out 1,000 miles and said, these are the 1,000 miles. If you can drive those hands off, you made a milestone and make some extra money. So we decided to drive these 1,000 miles in what was called the Google 1000. Initially, this is a video that's now almost 20 years old. The data was actually surprisingly similar to today's technology. You can recognize, if you're an expert, the LiDAR data, the range data that comprises a 3D image of the world. You can see the vehicles and pedestrians passing by and being tracked by software that would recognize those using machine learning. And then our vehicle making decisions as to when to turn, where to turn, going faster, slower, left, right, so as to avoid colliding with other obstacles like pedestrians and breaking traffic rules. And while in 2007 this required a big, massive computer and was very primitive, it is the exact same technology that drives today's self-driving cars, just more advanced. Then, on this technology, we built a family of vehicles, a two-seater, some Toyotas, some Fiat Chryslers, and equipped them with the gradual, more cost-effective and more capable sensor suite so we could really sense the environment seamlessly day and night. That led to roughly 56 million miles driven today. It's a massive number. Accident-free. We had only one accident that I'm aware of that Waymo caused, which was a slight fender bender with a bus where it touched a bus. That's all there is to it. Many, many people, by the way, have caused an accident with Waymo on the person's fault, but it's only been once the robot's fault to overlook an object. And if you look at the penetration, you'll find that Waymo is rapidly increasing. This is in San Francisco alone, where Waymo is now massively delivering transportation services. They're generally loved because there's no driver inside, so especially young women like them because they feel safer. And you'll see how Waymo is now eating into the market share of Lyft and Uber. And eventually, because there's no person inside, Waymo will be cheaper than Uber and Lyft. And when that happens, then I think having a human taxi ride-sharing, ride-hailing service will be a matter of the past. And Uber and Lyft know this. It's going to be an interesting development to see. Further, Swiss Re, a Swiss company, recently did a research study to assess the safety of those cars. To my knowledge, none of the Waymos, since the commercial service launched, have caused any accidents. But people do. And Swiss Re found Waymos roughly 8 times safer than human drivers. So both from an economical environment policy situation, from a democratization perspective, and from a safety perspective, it is now incumbent to really look at self-driving cars as a new solution for city transportation problems. This is not just research anymore. 2024 and 2025 are the year when we turned research into practical consumer businesses, and we forever remembered the moment when traffic accidents, we finally had a solution better than human drivers. And let me remind you, human drivers cause more than 1 million deaths every year worldwide. Now, to keep innovating, my friend Larry Page came to me and said, why don't we build flying cars? Why don't we lift our cars up in the air, say 500 meters, and then they can go in a straight line, and all the challenges with like self-driving is gone because you're in the middle of the air and there's nobody else. So we built a succession of prototype flying cars. They're not really cars, they don't drive, they just fly. The technical word is eVTOL. And the vision was, well, on the ground, the world is very congested, and the more transportation there is, the more congestion you have. In the air, because the air is so wide and so big and so three-dimensional, there'll never be the same congestion as on the ground. This is an example from San Francisco. You see downtown San Francisco, downtown UC Berkeley, which on a normal day would take roughly 30 to 40 minutes to drive. We believe we can fly the same distance in 2 to 3 minutes with the things we invented. And that's yet another wave of innovation that hasn't happened yet, but will happen. I promise you, in 10, 15 years' time, maybe 20 years' time, we'll stand here and look at it and say, wow, what has just happened to the world? Everybody wants to fly now. And it will happen because, as I proved to you, this is not just faster and more convenient, it's also safer and greener, uses less energy. The first version we built was very funny, as a human drone. You'd see it here flying over water. It was not very economical, but easy to fly. It was a proof of concept that showed us that a person, after 1 hour of training, can safely fly an aircraft. And hundreds of people have flown it. At one day, we trained 50 new pilots. And then the next one was better, more economical. It had a wing. And it also lifted itself vertically like a drone, but then flew like a regular aircraft. So here you see a vehicle with 8 electric motors taking off vertically without a runway and then be able to fly. Not over cities yet for safety. This is in the open field. But the innovation is not just the idea of vertical takeoff that's existed for a long time in helicopters. Innovation is to use electric and use AI. AI for the control of the vehicle. Electric is a way to have a super quiet, highly distributed propulsion system that's highly redundant, so much more reliable than a helicopter ever can be. And we accomplish this. These are lots and lots of numbers. The most important numbers are they fly roughly 10 times as fast as a car can drive on the ground, and they do this on a third of the energy of a car. So the amount of watt-hours per mile is roughly 110, compared to roughly 300 watt-hours per mile for Tesla. So all in, we are actually significantly more energy efficient than cars. And that's significant when you work it out, because that means the future of transportation ought to be airborne. This project is now transitioned into Boeing. It's called the WISC. It's one of the 3 leading projects in the world that do eVTOL. And as the FAA begins to approve and certify these vehicles, I see a massive impact similar to Waymo's today. Now, other ways of flying that also have become popular and impactful are drones, and Google X, we spun out Wing. There are other companies like called Zipline that pursue drone delivery already. And that's a field that we rapidly advance and great opportunities in industry. AI plays a major role in those drone flights to make sure they're safe. And then finally, I want to come back to the big elephant in the room, artificial intelligence. So that was my journey through AI. This AI we built in self-driving cars is hard to build, mostly because of the high cost of errors. When you compare a self-driving car with a large language models hallucinate. We all know this. They say things are wrong. And when that happens, we are not happy, but no one dies. In a self-driving car, if you hallucinate and do something that's wrong, you might run over a person or run a red light and kill a person. So the bar for safety for these AI systems is infinitely higher than the bar we used to. Nevertheless, maybe my most impactful project in Google became Google Brain. Google Brain was started in 2010 by me and Andrew Ng and Jeff Hinton, very famous people in AI these days, with the vision of building a massive computer brain. And in 2010, you never heard about this because it was not a topic to talk about. It took until 2022 until everybody talked about it. But this project in 2017 invented the transformer, which is today's best known and most scalable AI architecture that's behind every single piece of AI that you know today. So quite an important historical project. Before I go into modern day implications, let me tell you some of the beginnings. In the beginning, even in the 1990s, all the technology that we've kind of seen today kind of existed. It's just smaller. In the 1990s, there was a very famous invention at IBM where people looked into predictive speech. Can we take 2 or 3 words, like the dog ate the, and predict the next word? And those predictive models, those N models, became the primary way in which you do language understanding and even language translation to new languages for a long, long time. But it wasn't very powerful. What OpenAI and Anthropic have done, and of course Google Gemini, which is part of Google Brain, is really extend the context in which you predict something. So when you look at today's AI system and ask what do they really do, they're really a predictor of the next word or the next pixel in images, conditioned upon a long context. That context now can be 1 million words or tokens long. So imagine 1 million words is roughly 10 books or 8 books, that you could look at 8 books and predict the next word. And in doing so and having this context, they're able to make much better predictions. And the language that comes out the other side is incredibly sophisticated. So sophisticated that we're all enamored with the accomplishments of AI in the recent world. And all asking the question, how can we be part of the revolution? Early on, we found that OpenAI's GPT passed one of the most difficult exams ever administered in America, which is the bar exam for lawyers, at a 99th percentile. And we found that the images produced by AI, similar logic, predict the missing pixel, would be able to win international competitions and make videos and images at incredible speed. And I know all of you have been using it, of course, all the time. Software engineers use AI massively now. In my company, people say that 95% of the software is now written by AI. And if you think about this, software is a highly repetitive task. We always believed it's hard to write software. We paid software engineers lots of money, but it turns out it's easy to write software, and we don't have to pay as much money. because everything that software engineers write has been written before, and it's been deposited in the public knowledge on GitHub, and all you really have to do is figure out where that software is. And that means that the programming language of the future is not Python or anything like that, or Swift or React. The programming language of the future is English or Korean. Everyone here in this room will soon be able to be a software engineer without any training. You just have to tell the system what you want, and it will translate this into code. That is an evolution of unbelievable proportion, which means you can build your own computer software, you can build your own company, you can build your own application. Whatever software is missing, you don't need a PhD anymore to write software. You can just do it off the bat. And that's now happening. It's really amazing. I want to point out, because Korea is so big in medical imaging, even in 2017, we took these innovations and applied them to problems way outside language and images, and really move into a field of image understanding. This is a study in 2017 that made the cover of Nature, where we looked into skin cancer and diagnostics and asked, can AI be trained to do life-saving medical functions, such as finding your skin cancer? And skin cancer in the US is the #1 cancer. And we trained it to really distinguish benign and malignant cells. These are images from real people. The top is harmless, the bottom will kill you. They're very hard to distinguish for doctors. And then we went studies, and I apologize, this is a hard-to-read graph, but this is a study that's typically in medical fields, where we compare something called sensitivity and specificity, where you really ask yourself, how good are you in detecting cancer and rejecting non-cancerous cells? The continuous curve is the performance of our algorithm, and all you want to be is you want to be in the top right corner as much as possible, because that's the remaining error. And every dot is a human doctor, and they're not quite as up top right, which means they perform poorer than an iPhone or a Samsung phone equipped with our software. There was an early proof of something that's now been repeated thousands of times in medical circles. An AI trained to do diagnostics from radiology to Alzheimer to drunkenness to pain does better than the best doctors. What this means is you can now take the ability to diagnose diseases and democratize it around the world. You can do it at home. You don't have to see a doctor anymore. It's going to be a massive innovation. And hand in hand with this innovation will become innovation on drug design. Drug design today, to get a drug into the marketplace, a medical drug costs $1 billion. But as AI is going to be used to shortcut all these steps along the way, it's conceivable that a drug might cost $1 million. And when a drug costs $1 million, you can have 1,000 times as many drugs, 10,000 times as many drugs. And when you shrink it down to $100, you can make precision medication, the drug just for you, that understands your body and your disease and cures your disease. It is absolutely conceivable that in the near future, we'll be able to cure or at least treat, pretty much detect all cancers. And cancer might become an issue of the past. It's a very broad field, but I can tell you in the US, many, many AI companies are working on that right now. I've been asked to comment on Korea, and honestly, I'm here to learn. I'm the biggest fan of your country and what you do in so many fields, including semiconductors. It's obviously amazing opportunities for everybody to play. And the most important thing to remember is we're just beginning. You might say so much has happened in the past, but if this was a soccer game, we're in the first 5 minutes, okay? And yes, OpenAI has scored a goal, and so has Gemini at Google, and so has Anthropic, but there's so much more to discover, okay? First, infrastructure. There's massive infrastructure investments necessary for AI. Things that at a scale we can't even imagine yet. I think it's going to drive society forward for the next decades. There's a massive opportunity in chip design. When you look, and I just talked to a local KAIST professor here, when you look at the design of algorithms in AI and design of hardware, they're basically separate. Like the GPUs that run today's AI were never designed for AI. They just happened to be around at a time AI became popular. The transformer that we invented at Google was never designed for a hardware piece. It just happened to run on this hardware piece. And with this come deficiencies, not just compute, but also transport. Data transport is horribly inefficient today. So if someone invented new processors and new algorithms at the same time, really designed to make inference and training faster with large data sets, you could conceivably drastically reduce the cost it takes to train an AI model. And just give you a scale of costs, right? So if you ask yourself, how much does it cost to train an AI model? Until last year, we said $100 million. That's what OpenAI takes. That's what Anthropic takes. Now we can say $10 million because of DeepSeek, of China's innovation, and maybe they cheated a little bit, but it's already a massive reduction in cost. But how much does it cost to train a human brain? How much energy does the human brain expend until we are 18 or 25? $300, okay? So in principle, we should be able to build a computer where the entire training should cost $300 because that exists. All of you and your youth burned, maybe over a lifetime, you burn $1,000 of energy when it comes to the energy used by your brain. So there's amazing opportunities. And there's amazing opportunities in design. If you look at design today, there is no good physics AI yet, where you can throw in and say, I want an airplane, I want a toaster, I want a PC, and out comes the design that can be manufactured. But with the knowledge behind this, the manufacturing, the physics, the materials, the handlings, all these things and supply chain are known to us, and most of them are basic physics. So there's now a number of companies beginning to put together an AI for the physical world. And when that happens, you might be able to design a chip not in a year, but in a second. And imagine how it's going to speed up your industries if you could do this. And this will happen. I think it's something to invest in, and it's very differentiated. Finally, I want to remind you that we're just at the beginning of humanity. When I started my work, iPhones didn't exist, social networks didn't exist. When my grandparents lived 150 years ago, there were no airplanes, there were no cell phones, there wasn't even a light switch on the wall or a flushing water toilet. Almost anything interesting has just been invented compared to the history of humanity. Just imagine the next 150 years, the next 50 years. There'll be so many things that will be invented that we can't even imagine today, like flying cars and cures for cancer and all these wonderful things. So my biggest message to everybody here is challenge yourself, ask yourself, what can you invent? What do you want your companies, your governments to invent and help them invent it? Don't think regulations, that's the wrong thing to think right now, think innovation. And when you take that mindset, hopefully you can take from this presentation my enthusiasm about being alive today and being able to invent today. Thank you so much.
네, 강연 감사합니다. AI와 공존이 우리의
Thank you very much for the presentation. So the shared existence with AI is indeed changing the world and the society that we live in. So that was a time for us to think about what it means for us to be part of this world and to innovate. So that was and now we will be beginning the first session.
Now, head of APEC at Palantir, Hein Kratom, is going to talk about cybernetic enterprise driven by AI. Please welcome Hein Kratom with a big hand.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here with you all. Thank you so much for the honor and privilege to be speaking with you this morning. My name is Hein Kratom. I've been at Palantir for almost 10 years now. Palantir is a company that partners with a lot of large organizations to help them make the use of data and more recently AI to transform their business and make better decisions. And we do this by embedding very closely with our partners. So I've spent the better part of the last few years, when we say working with large institutions, I mean really being on the shop floor with manufacturing companies as they're thinking about how they use that data and technology to improve their business. And that's really informed our opinion of how data and AI can be used more effectively, and what are the learnings and the challenges that we face when it comes to using that in a way that really improves things. I'm excited to share some of those insights with you all here today. And so to start it off, one of the things that we've noticed in how companies have been using data for the last couple of years is that it's been a very linear process. When they think about a problem that they want to solve, they think about what information is available to them, and they bring in that data and they put it into maybe a dashboard that they can then look at and analyze and take away one insight that they can use one time. But that's a very one-off process. It's ephemeral. You don't get any information or learning from that with time. And as generative AI came out, we're seeing the same pattern repeat itself, where different organizations or people, really individuals, the way that we got our first experience with generative AI was through chatbots. And so our first instinct has been, how do I then ask a question to a chatbot and get an answer? Which again is that same linear process. If I ask a question, I try to retrieve data more quickly, I get the one insight, and then I go and I do my business, or it gave me the insight that I was looking for. But that's not something that I can use in a way that's very repeatable, in a way that actually improves something over time. And if you really think about organizations, if you really think about businesses, it's a lot more complicated than that. You have a lot of different interdependent steps that you have to be thinking about, and you have to understand that and appreciate that if you really want to be using AI more effectively in your day-to-day business. And so if we take maybe a manufacturing company as an example, it's not just a linear decision. It's actually a link or a chain of processes and loops that you have to go by. So you might want to start with your procurement, purchase raw parts, that then go into your supply chain. You then want to maybe manufacture that further, assemble a final product that you then distribute onwards to your final customers. But then the customers might give you feedback. And you want to take that feedback and you want to incorporate that back into the production process itself, into your R&D as you're designing new products, into your supply chain as you're working with different suppliers to continue to build products over time. So really, it's much more complex than that linear process that we looked at earlier, and it really incorporates a lot of different steps, a lot of different decisions, a lot of different people, and you want to be able to think about developing closed-loop systems that allow you to do that effectively. And it's important to bear that in mind as you then think about how AI can then be used as part of the same process. And so as a human, when I think about a decision, I look at information, I process it, I evaluate different scenarios, I take a final decision. You want that same thing to be encoded into a system that the AI can then rationalize and think about so that they can complement or replicate some of these decisions at scale. And so that starts with data, making sure you have all of the right context and information that you need to be able to make these decisions. When I talk about data, we're talking about different data formats, so both structured data, and increasingly you can also tap into unstructured data, so PDFs, emails, Excel files, but now also videos, audio files. And when we talk about data integration, we're not just talking about replicating the data that you would have into a system. We want to make sure that you're also bringing that together and connecting it in a way that makes sense, where there's dependency between the different information that you're looking at. Then comes logic integration, right? The know-how that you would have from your business users, from your experts in an organization, and thinking about how to incorporate that into the system as well. Alongside maybe more traditional models that you might be using, like using solvers for scheduling, using forecasting models, making sure that you're doing that in tandem with any business expertise that your users have from running your organization, and incorporating that into a way that then both your team and peers, as well as an AI, can leverage and use. And really, all of this is moot without thinking about what actions and decisions that you can take on top of this information. And so you want to make sure that the expert who's evaluating this information is thinking about what decisions can I take afterwards. If I know that I have a shortage of parts in my supply chain, what can I do? Can I order in more parts? Can I reallocate parts between my different distribution centers? What are the various decisions that I can take? What are the different actions that I can take? And then making sure that you can then orchestrate these in the downstream systems that you need to be able to actually do this effectively. And so the same process that a human expert would think about, the same information that you would need, that needs to be encoded so that you can allow automation and AI agents to be running through the process alongside you to be able to make those same effective decisions. And we're talking a lot about AI and automation, But I do want to call out that while that is the North Star, we do expect that to still happen in tandem with a human in the loop and an expert, especially in the beginning. People today may try to sell you the vision of AI and tell you that you could automate everything, but really what we're seeing is that it's going to be a journey and a process, where if we take an example of an insurance company, their primary role for a claims expert would be to review claims and decide if they want to pay them out. And the way that they would do this typically is they would receive a claim, they would look at all of the supporting evidence, so that can be PDFs from the invoices, it could be sort of communication and back and forth with an inspector. All of that information is typically evaluated by an operator, who then looks at that in combination with the other organization's data, such as the policy, the history of interactions, to then determine the payout. This is something that you can imagine with time. You can have an AI agent provide suggestions to humans where they would look at the same data first, they would pre-process it, they would flag any alerts where some information may be inconsistent with the other data that you have, and then let the humans still review and have the final say on whether or not they want to pay out the claim and for how much. With time, as you build more confidence in this, we've seen a shift from more suggestions to more empowering the AI to make those first recommendations, of course, only in cases where you have the right governance in place and the right trust in the system, because these are important decisions that it's helping take. I appreciate this is all still very abstract, so I'm going to walk you through a concrete example of how we see this look like in an actual product and workflow. And I'll use an example of a manufacturing company. So this is a notional company called Onyx Enterprises. They are a manufacturer of medical goods, so think surgical masks, think syringes, ventilators. They're both a producer and a distributor of these products. And so they'll have a global network that you can see on the chart here with all of the different sites. And as I mentioned earlier, this is obviously a complex operation where at each of these locations you have a different decision that is being made by different people. Ideally, you're not making this decision locally, but you're thinking about global optimizations as well between your overall inventory, your overall demand and supply. And so the first thing that we would start with, the first thing that I as a human would need today, is to bring all of that information together. And so looking at an individual plant, for example, all of the sensor data that I have from my assets to know how my production line is performing, looking at the demand, looking at the supply, looking at the fulfillment rates, looking at my maintenance logs, looking at all of the actions that the different individuals are taking in the factory. None of this is novel and new. Companies have been doing this for years, bringing that data in to make sure that they have a much better understanding of their operations, to think about how they can then action these different decisions. But now imagine a world where it's not just me, the human expert, who's doing this, but I have a swarm of AI agents that are essentially evaluating all of these decisions in parallel, live, and at scale, where these same actions that I talked about earlier, so looking at order fulfillment, looking at customer conversations, looking at maintenance tasks, all of these decisions are supported by multiple AI agents who are evaluating the different needs, looking at the real information, and then providing suggestions or even actions that are even implemented and orchestrated within my organization. Let's go through a concrete example of this. So let's take order fulfillment. And the way that this would typically start is, I would receive a request from a customer for a specific order set. I, as a human expert, would then want to go and look at it, look at, again, the information that is supplied, and that can be the PDFs, that can be the conversations with the customer. And then I would start to evaluate and look at my current inventory and determine whether or not I have enough inventory in stock to fulfill this order. Then I would look at the shipping information and see what is the best route, what is the most cost-effective route to use to be able to ensure that the products are delivered to my customers in time. This is the way that I would process this as a person or as an expert. And it's the same information that we can then use, as we mentioned earlier, if we encoded this right, to have an AI process it as well. So think about the data, think about the logic, think about the actions, all of these coming together into the different workflows that are using that same data foundation so that we're doing that in consistency with the rest of the organization. And so let's zoom in and start with the beginning. So the data integration piece, we would want to bring in all of the information that we would need coming in from the various systems, making sure that that's all connected in one platform so that we have that common foundation and common understanding that we would need to evaluate that request from the customer. From there then comes the logic. So being able to understand the customer request, Sebastian mentioned earlier also writing that request in natural language, so making sure that you're writing the request that you would need. And then making sure that you're providing an AI, especially if you're leveraging an LLM, with some tools to keep it grounded. So I want you to look at I want you to understand the customer request, but I want you to look at specifically this data that I'm giving you, because that is actually what I want you to ground your decision in, to be able to then evaluate whether or not you can allocate that inventory to the customer. And it's not just LLM blocks, but you can also combine that with other different models that you might have in your organization. So looking at things like swaps and substitutions between different parts that you can use, looking at forecasting models that then determine also what are the trade-offs and the downstream implications of if you were to allocate this order to this customer, how does that affect your other orders that are coming in and your overall inventory. And you want to be evaluating this decision not just one-off as one order, but you obviously need a way to be able to do this in a way that's automated and at scale. And so making sure that you're running this continuously for every customer order that comes in. And I talked a lot about AI being fused into the system. One thing I definitely want to make sure to touch on is also ensuring that you're monitoring the performance of these models. And so in traditional machine learning, we'll have obviously frameworks where we can evaluate precision, recall, accuracy. These same frameworks, we need to make sure that we're implementing and evaluating for LLMs as well, and evolving these to take into account the nature of these new models. And so it's very important, of course, that as we use more AI in our sort of everyday lives, that we're constantly evaluating and monitoring the performance of these models, and also comparing the different models, because with every month there's a new release coming out there, and different models are actually performing better for different types of tasks. And so you want to be able to have that flexibility of choosing the right model for a specific need and making sure that you're using the right one over time. And so I've talked a lot about having an automated workflow that we just showed. Of course, it's not going to be perfect at the beginning, or there are going to be some cases where you do need that human-in-the-loop interaction that I mentioned earlier. And so if we look at what that might look like, you'd want to have a good interface between the AI and the human expert who's then reviewing the information, where you're able to do a handover of all of the context that the AI agent has looked at and pass that on to the human expert. So all of the data that it looked at, all of the logic that it thought about, all of the different scenarios that it evaluated should be made transparent and available to the human so they can review that with further detail. It can go a step beyond that as well and provide suggestions of what is the right course of action. So if there's an open order that the AI wasn't sure how to fulfill, it may suggest different alternatives or different components that could be used instead to meet that customer need. And as a human expert, I'm able to then evaluate all of these different scenarios and then determine what is the right course of action. And it's very important that when I do this, that information is then saved and stored and then fed back into my system so that in the future, as new orders come in, if we have these same open questions, we're able to learn from the historic steps that were taken to provide better suggestions moving forward. And so you'll need a framework where you're able to continuously capture that knowledge, that tribal knowledge that previously didn't exist in any database that you were integrating, but does exist in the sort of brains of your experts who are on the shop floor, making sure that you're able to capture that and then feed back into the system. And when you do that, you obviously need to make sure also that you have the right governance in place, where as new information is coming in, you can have a place where you can also evaluate all the new different data that you're bringing in, and have the right people, of course, approve that this should be fed back into the system and used in the future. So I just walked through one example of order fulfillment as one key process that a manufacturing company might be taking. But of course, this is one of many different processes that the organization is thinking about all the time. There could be, as we mentioned earlier, other decisions around quality, inspections, maintenance, and for each of these, you can imagine that you would have a dedicated AI agent that is running in parallel alongside your human expert, who is evaluating that same information that we looked at earlier and providing suggestions and support to the humans as they're running the operations of the business. And with AI today, you can do this at scale. You can be making hundreds and thousands of decisions in parallel to really help accelerate and improve processes in a factory. And so I walked you through an example of what we see the end state look like. AI-driven automation is really what we strive for, and we see that as being the top pinnacle of the AI levels in an enterprise. But what we are seeing a lot of people thinking about is much more limited. And so they're thinking about, as I mentioned earlier, chatbot interfaces or quick lookups. And don't get me wrong, these are very valuable workflows. It can help really accelerate some sort of quick question and answer. But it's really just scratching the surface of what we see as being possible in using AI and embedding it in sort of everyday production, everyday enterprise. And we work very closely with our partners to make sure that we're guiding them through how they can evolve that thinking and work and aspire towards that automation. And maybe the one thing that I would leave you with today is to think about, in your everyday business, in your everyday life, don't limit yourself to the chat interface where I have a question, let me go and quickly ask and get an answer, but rather, what are the tasks that you're performing? How can I automate those? And then let that be the objective that you're thinking about. Thank you.
네, 말씀 잘 들어봤습니다. 기업 환경 자체를
Thank you very much for the talk. So that was about how we could fundamentally transform the corporate environment so that businesses can be ready in an agile manner for the future that will be more and more AI driven. So thank you very much. And that was Hind Kratom. So once again, a big hand, please.
네, 그럼 이어서 두 번째로 이세돌 전 프로바둑 기사님
Moving on, we will listen to Mr. Lee Se-dol, former professional Go player, who will talk about AI-human collaboration challenges and opportunities in a new era. Please welcome Mr. Lee Se-dol with a big hand. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lee Se-dol. I'm extremely happy and honored to attend today's Seoul Forum. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that I know the most. I used to be a Go player, but in 2016, there was a big turnaround. There was a match with a Go program, AlphaGo. The result, I lost. 1-4. I was defeated. Back in the days, it was a huge shock for me. AI that was trained on human Go playing records were so good, and I didn't expect it to be that good. Today, I'm going to briefly talk about that experience and also the changes brought about ever since. After losing the first and the second game, what I thought to myself is that maybe AlphaGo is better than me. With a normal approach, it would be very difficult to win AlphaGo. So I came up with a strategy for game 3, and I finally won the 4th game. So that was the beginning of AlphaGo, the initial version. So 1 year after that, there was an AlphaGo master version that was revealed in China. So from then on, it became difficult for humans to win AI. And 6 months later, AlphaGo Zero emerged, and Go has left completely the hands of human beings. So we were not able to understand the tactics of AlphaGo, and the AlphaGo with no goal left the Go sector. AlphaGo left, but other Go AI programs replaced its place, and everybody involved with the Go experienced upheaval, huge transformation. This absolute, abstract, perfect game made by humans no longer needed abstract thinking, and Go came to exist as a strategic game. Let me delve deeper into the transformation I'm talking about. These days, generative AI is the buzzword. And of course, I also use generative AI very well. So I asked Gen AI about who Lee Sedol is. And there were lots of good things about me. Yeah, he's a great man. Yes, very well made, this Gen AI. So I said to the AI, I am Lee Sedol. And Gen AI said, oh, you're joking. So in convincing this AI, I was able to also learn about the changes happening in Go. So that's also what I'm going to briefly talk about in my presentation. Now, let us look at the screen for the presentation. So this is the initial years. So when I fought against AlphaGo and the emergence of AlphaGo. So this is after I lost the third game, and this is what I said. Isn't it a nice quote? So that's the fourth game. So this was the move that was considered to have made my victory possible. Now this is the evolution of AlphaGo. The emergence of AlphaGo was in 2016, so it learned from human game records. It embeds deep learning technology as well, a neural network, and it defeated me by 4-1. And then came AlphaGo Master, which emerged in 2017. And it is the further advanced version of AlphaGo. It based its style on the human game records. So it was named AlphaGo Master because it mastered all the human game records. So at the end of 2017, AlphaGo 0 came about. But the interesting thing about this was that it went beyond human knowledge. It learned solely through self-study, like millions and tens of millions of times. But what is very important is everybody in Go could not understand the number of zeros. So you can say that AlphaGo has completely left the hands of human beings. Now, let us look at how Go has changed post-AlphaGo era. First of all, this person, Lee Sedol, master of Go, announced his retirement. But other than his retirement, there has been also other changes. Now, the Go commentary became more accurate and precise. In the past, when you look at or when you listen to the commentary of the commentators, the comments were quite vague and ambiguous. Oh, this is good and that is good as well. This is what they would used to say. So Go commentary is not easy, but when we choose C rather than A and B, then they would say, yes, C is the best move. But Go commentary has become completely different with the emergence of AI Go programs. So the commentary is based on more facts, more logic, why this move is better than that move, and the role of the commentators thus has changed slightly as well. So understanding the judgment of AI and telling the commentary in a human language, that's what the role of commentators has become these days. So if there is a technology, you should be able to interpret the technology, adding your own values, and that has become critical. Next change is about breaking old stereotypes or conventional wisdom. If you studied Go a little bit, there are the moves that you have to avoid, the moves that you don't play. For the past few decades, going up to centuries, we have made conclusions for some moves that need to be avoided. But AlphaGo plays the move in a spot where humans would never do. And sometimes those moves were brilliant. But that is not the important matter. So that kind of change has brought about some soul searching in the human world. And let me show you a simple example. Now, there is the move of the stone number 3. So that's the third move. So this was a shock for me. So this is like in the really beginning of the game, and putting that move or playing that move over there was something that was avoided by many professional Go players. And I was taught that way growing up. And after I became a professional Go player, I've never actually played that move, number 3. But AlphaGo actually played this move, number 3, in the beginning of the game. And I thought to myself, why I couldn't have made that move like AlphaGo. So it's something that I could have done better. I think that was inside my box. I failed to go out of the box. So I looked it up a little bit. So I looked up whether other players have done this in other countries, for example, in China, in Japan. But what is surprising is nobody has made that kind of move before. So from a human perspective, we have a lot of human game records, but nobody in this world has ever played this move before. So this is very interesting and intriguing. And this is a great example of how AlphaGo broke old stereotypes. Up until AlphaGo Master, the AI studied human game records, so they trained themselves on data. But human beings, but they were not actually mired in a human framework, a human culture. So I think that explains the kind of move that AlphaGo made over here. So AlphaGo has given a shock that is not just technological, but also philosophical. And that's the impression I had. So AI went beyond the conventional wisdom of human beings, and they went out of the box. Now we have entered the era of AI in earnest, where AI and humans would collaborate, or it could lead to more conflicts. Now moving on to the next topic. AI has brought about huge gaps, widening gaps. Ever since the arrival of many Go AI programs, I thought everybody's Go playing skills would go up, and a lot of mid-level, low-level Go player or professional Go player to become a mid-level, it's not very difficult. But for mid-level to rise to the ranks of high-level, it is extremely difficult. But as for the top professional Go players, while training with AI, have shown exponential growth. So they've become more elaborate, more structured and organized, and maybe I could say more creative in playing Go. They've shown a lot of great performance. So you can see that AI has brought about a winding gap in Go and professional Go world. But I think that this not only applies to the Go world. Your ability to leverage AI will determine your level of ability and skills. So AI is a tool that is for general use, but how you use and leverage this tool will bring about completely different results.
예, 요거는 그냥 그대로 한번 읽어드리겠습니다.
I'm going to read out what's written on the
AI가
screen.
보여주면
When AI shows the board, AI shows the plan or the board, skilled players develop strategies and unskilled players only follow the explanations. Even when looking at the same move, skilled players learn the principles while unskilled players simply memorize the answers. AI provided the answers to everyone, but not everyone understood the meaning behind those answers. And of course, as for top professional players, we cannot always understand all the answers. It is only a few who can understand the meaning behind those answers. So AI era brought about a war not among tools, but among humans who are leveraging those tools. Who can use AI and interpret it for its own use or his or her own use will be the winner.
그다음으로 넘어간다면요. 예술적
Now, I would like to touch upon the artistic value and its transformation. I actually believe, or I was taught Go as an art. So it's an art that is created by two Go players. That's how I was taught while growing up.
그 자체가 저에겐 그런
So for me, Go in itself
창조였습니다.
was art, artistic creation.
펼쳐진 그런 승부이자
So it is art that was created and conversation that blossomed on the Go board. And inside all that, there were some philosophical and aesthetic values that I could draw. But with the emergence of AI,
얘기한 수성으로 바꿨고요.
it has changed Go as a tool, just a mere tool for victory and winning.
회의가 저를 좀 많이 흔들었습니다.
So all of these led to my skepticism.
기사들은
And as for the junior Go players, they leverage AI and they are learned on AI to become more effective, to play the more efficient moves. So as that happens, the uniqueness of Go and the artistry of Go have somewhat disappeared.
어떻게 보면 인간의 그런 창의성 대신에 AI의 그런 통계
AI's statistics and strategies
지배하게 되었죠.
have come to dominate the Go world other than replacing human creation. And I thought that
그런데 좀 시간이
the Go's era is over.
제 관점에서
But as time passed by, I
자문하게 되었습니다.
came to ask myself whether my questions were right.
예술성의 기준이라는 것은
Because when it comes to determining what is art and what is not art, I think that one of the most important criteria should be whether art reflects the current trends. Of course, the Go world has transformed with the emergence of AI, but maybe we are seeing an evolved version of Go these days because humans continue to select and interpret and give meaning to Go. As long as that happens, then AI will not bring about an end of art of Go, but is going to announce a new beginning of Go as art.
어떻게 전 알파고의 대국은 제가 AI 시대를 여는
So the game with AlphaGo
로 만든 계기였을지 모르겠습니다. 그리고
has helped to spark and initiate the era of AI
아주
and the AI era of Go. And ever since, the Go world has
그 판이
drastically changed,
자신을 새롭게 정의해야만
and the Go players have to newly define themselves while playing the Go. And amidst this transformation,
단순한
I
생각 아니라
believe that the change brought about AI is not just about efficiency, but it's about redefining the rules, and it's about changing the way we think,
새로운 기회를
and it's also about widening the gap, but creating opportunities at the same time.
아마 모든 산업
As it was the case for the Go world, I believe all the other industries and sectors have the same task ahead of them. I hope that all of you who are present here today will be at the center of such transformation. The AI that you will create, I hope it's not going to be just a faster technology, but a tool that will help us make a better and wider world. And through that tool, we can achieve a fairer and more creative world.
이제 제 수는 여기까지입니다.
My move stops here.
여러분이
The next move will be played by all of you.
한국 AI 산업의 미래
The future of Korean AI era is on your shoulders.
들어주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you for listening.
해드렸습니다.
This was Lee Se-dol.
네, 이세돌 전 프로바둑 기사.
Thank you very much. So that was the former professional Go player, Lee Se-dol. Thank you very much. So he just talked about the shared existence between AI and human beings as one with direct experience. So he was also able to give a hefty question that is befitting the theme of today. So he gave us his insights on how humans can ensure shared existence with AI. So once again, let's give him a big hand.
네, 잘 아시다시피
Thank you. And now, as you all know, it was in 2016 that Mr. Lee Se-dol and AlphaGo played a game of Go, and that was a symbolic event that also let the world know about the AI. So that was also highly resonating with us about how he mentioned that we could also utilize AI for a more agile future. So now we will be proceeding with the panel discussion soon, and please also be informed that there is broadcasting on the Seoul Forum website as well as YouTube. So I hope that everyone will stay with us until the end. And also I hope for your continued attention on the discussion on the future with AI. Thank you very much. And now we will begin the panel discussion in session 1. I would call out each participant and I would like to ask you to come up on stage. Now we have the moderator, Professor Kim Jong-ho of KAIST. And let me invite Head of APAC from Palantir, Hein Kratom, and Senior Vice President Kim Young-jun from LG Electronics, and Vice President Lee Bo-na of Samsung Electronics, Vice President Chu Si-hyun of HMC Robotics Lab, and Vice President Jacob Chun of T-Map Mobility, and CEO Ryu Jung-hee of RL World. So please welcome them with a big hand. Thank you very much, and let me ask everyone to take your seats. Thank you very much, and now let me hand over to the moderator, Professor Kim Jong-ho.
네, 안녕하십니까?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good morning.
이번 세션의 좌장을
I am
카이스트의 김정호입니다.
Kim Jong-ho from KAIST, who will be serving as a moderator of this panel discussion. Now, first of all, I would like to congratulate the opening of the Seoul Forum 2025 very successfully indeed, and also I would like to thank and welcome all the panelists and the speakers. Now, in this session, we will be discussing the topic of lifestyle revolution, AI integrating into everyday life. The time given to us is about an hour and a half. So we have just heard from the speaker from Palantir and also from former professional Go player Lee Se-dol, and we heard about how AI is affecting the everyday life as well as our industries in many different ways. Now then, as for myself, in terms of how I'm going to run this, I will be introducing the speakers, and then will then be delivering the question to the panelists, for which they will have about 5 minutes to respond to each question. And also let us make it more informal, as if we are having a chat by the fireside, but will be recorded on YouTube. So again, let us not be too formal and let us have a casual chat. So with that, let me first introduce these panelists. First, we have Hein Kratom, who is the head of APAC at Palantir. Now, she is working as the data transition and AI solution provider, so please welcome her. So, yes, Hein, do you hear me? Do you hear me? And you also mentioned the presentation, and actually, I thought I was in the graduate school. So that was my joke, my Korean joke. I thought I was in the graduate school listening to a presentation. So now then, second, Senior Vice President Kim Young-jun, who is currently the AI Research Lab within the CTO division at LG Electronics. Next is Vice President Lee Bo-na from Samsung Electronics, and she is currently the head of the CX group and is in charge of the design for smart electronics in Samsung Electronics. So that is Vice President Lee Bo-na. And so you majored in design or computer interface, or no, business management? But I understand that you know a lot of people in KAIST. Yes, Hong Lung. So I do know some people. So you didn't graduate from KAIST? I understand that we are not supposed to talk about school ties or regional ties. Well, the reason why I mentioned this is because I want to have a friendly chat. So that is why. All right, thank you. And then next is Vice President Ju Si-hyun from HMC Robotics Lab. So he's the Director of Robotics Intelligence Development Group at Hyundai Motor Company's Robotics Lab. He is engaged in research on AI software for vision and speech. So it is Mr. Ju Si-hyun. And next is Vice President Jacob Chun of T-Map Mobility. He is the Chief Product Officer at T-Map Mobility. So it is Jacob Chun. And last but not least, now we have the CEO, Ryu Jung-hee of Real World. I understand that he founded Future Play. He is quite rich, and also he is developing the AI Foundation for Industrial Robots, and also received a seed investment by 200 billion won in 2020. So it is Mr. Ryu Jung-hee. So it was in 1994 that, now I mentioned briefly, so this is going to be like a living room chat. So in 1996, so I was a member of the Samsung Electronics semiconductor design before then, and then I moved on to KAIST in 1996, and so I met him there in KAIST, and so I'm sure that he doesn't remember me, but I always knew that he was going to be a great person because he was not only a good student, but he also showed excellent leadership, so I knew that he would do bigger and better things. Well, you know, when you are studying and also if you're not a very good student, then at least you should know to talk others into what you want to do, to make them do it for you. So that is why I believe that I was better at that. But then now, so for the virtual world, I know what you have done, but then for the real world company, I'm not sure what it is, so you can also explain a little bit more later on. So thank you very much. So that was my way of making it more informal. And then, of course, I see that the speakers come with different experience in different fields, mostly in AI. So now let me raise this question. So then, for AI, so how do you foresee AI changing our future, or how will it be utilized in different applications, and how it will or should be linked to businesses? And also, of course, this would involve people and money. Then how can it also be profitable and also sustain the ecosystem? So then now, let me direct the question to first Hind. So Palantir. So may I invest in Palantir now? So now then, in the age of AI, of course, data. So I understand that you're also in data business worldwide. And I also heard, I said in YouTube that it's the time to buy Palantir stocks now. So yes, please go ahead. And also about your stocks, please.
I think a few years ago would have been a better investment, but I hope that this is still the beginning for us. Yeah, I mean, I tried to touch on this a little bit in the presentation. I think there are many ways in which AI can really start to be integrated into businesses and enterprises. I think the way that we would see it coming in at the beginning is really helping to automate some of the more manual tasks that we're seeing being conducted. And I think this is more of what's obvious for us to see right now and imagine, but it's very valuable. And so I can imagine a world where a lot of the things that people would do that are very repetitive, you can start to have an AI agent support the user in doing that in a better way. I think there's probably more untapped opportunities that we haven't thought about. We just heard this in the previous presentation as well, of things that we haven't necessarily conceived of that are suggestions that will really complement the way that we operate. But I think at the beginning, there's already huge benefits to be gained by just having the AI be something that is almost ubiquitous with what we do. And I almost think it'll be hard to imagine what that looks like because, you know, with the chatbot interface, it's a very conscious, I go when I interact with an AI, I ask it a question and I get an answer. But I think the world that we're imagining is it's going to be so seamlessly integrated that we won't realize that it's there doing things in the background. And that's what I imagine it will be, to just, you won't necessarily see it or feel it because it's just there doing things behind the scenes.
그러니까 우리가 하는 일이 다 알진 못하지만 뒤에서 다 AI가 할 거라는
Yes,
거죠.
so AI will be doing everything background, right?
I can see it supporting decisions in the background, that's right. Obviously, it's going to be intentional where you use it, and it would still be up to us to make sure that we're leveraging it, wielding it well to solve these most important problems. But I do imagine that in industry at least, it will be there to guide humans with all of the manual tasks, repetitive tasks, and then taking on as many of the processes that are possible and automating them.
네. 아까 그 말씀하신 중에 AI
Yes, from what you said, you mentioned about AI agent.
인간과 그 AI를 연결하는 그
So AI and human are connected through AI agent, and I am not the greatest fan of Jensen Huang because he's wearing like jackets. But anyways, is it because of the marketing reason, or is it because AI is used a lot in businesses? And what is Palantir's approach?
I'm not trying to say the question.
AI agent 개념.
So when it comes to AI agent, is Palantir going to also apply AI agent concept?
Yeah, so we think, well, we're looking to help customers be able to develop AI agents and then be able to use them in their business. So we really feel like AI should be part of the fabric of an organization and how it's operating, and it's really an under-leveraged resource today. So AI agents is one manifestation of how you can use AI. That's just maybe one branding or one terminology to use for it. But the idea that we're pushing for and supporting our partners and being able to achieve is thinking about I would actually not start from the bottom up of what is AI and how do I use it. The way that we think about things is, if I'm running an organization, what are the main decisions that I need to do to be able to produce my products better, faster, cheaper, satisfy my customers? And then from that lens, think about what are the processes or decisions that I need to take as an organization, and how much of these tasks can an AI and data help me be able to do in a way that is better, more informed, and faster. So they serve that purpose.
알겠습니다. 더 하고 싶은 얘기 많이 있는데 다음 턴에서 또 질문드리겠습니다.
Yes, I have lots of questions, but maybe I'll come back to you. So is Palantir stock going to go up? Stock prices? Did you get a lot of stock option?
다 예상 질문들입니다. 마음에 준비하십시오. 예.
Yes, I'm going to ask similar questions to all the other panelists.
NDA 맺으셨는지.
Did you sign an NDA with your company?
Look, I think the technology space has been a great one to be in. I think Palantir, we've been able to adapt to a lot of opportunities very quickly. I think we're only the beginning, I hope and I believe, of what we can do. It's been a great 10 years for me with the company, and I'm very excited about what more we can do. And a lot of it is, it's not just Palantir, it's Palantir working very closely with our partners. One thing I didn't mention is I moved to Korea about 3.5 years ago to start our office here. I thought I'd only be here for 3 months. It's now been 3+ years. And a lot of it is seeing the potential in what we can do with partners in industry and seeing how they're embracing AI and our partnership. And that's really helped drive a lot of the growth of our business.
네, 감사합니다. 제가 왜 이런 그 약간 우스개 질문을 하냐면
The reason I'm asking you this kind of interesting question is because I gave a lot of lecture in AI and semiconductor, and graduate school students, they tend to listen attentively to lectures, but more than graduate school students, it is the stock investors that they have their eyes sparkling. So my wife, I don't talk about HBM, and I watch like baseball matches, but my wife asked me, do you do HBM? She asked me that. So do I have to buy NVIDIA, Hynix, Broadcom, or Palantir? And she was very active and asked me all of these questions about stock. So yes, money rules. So I'm going to go back to Palantir later on.
그때 제가 와이프 친구들한테 팔란티어 얘기를 했었어요.
So I also told my wife's friends about Palantir. All right, now then, moving on to Vice President Kim Young-jun from LG Electronics, from the Artificial Intelligence Lab. Of course, LG Electronics is developing a number of different AI systems, as far as I understand, like EXA-1. Yes, EXA-1, yes. So you developed it on your own, or is there a separate team? Yes, there's a separate team. It's a different team now. It's a different company, and we exist inside the company. All right. So I have a lot of questions about EXA-1 as well. Now then, yes, about the future life, future lifestyle. Then, from the LG Electronics perspective, how do you envision our future living style changing in relation to AI, and also how will this be related to businesses? Now, I would say there are largely 3 categories in 3 areas that we can have AI application. First, the most brisk right now would be the AI for company. In other words, the in-house processes to be streamlined, automated, utilizing AI agents. So this is something, now for quite a long time, we had been talking about big data, but then of course data is, sometimes there is no continuity over time. So of course, Palantir mentioned this, so I listened with great attention, but anyway, so it's about the continuity. Now of course, the language model, it came about because now perhaps you have same expressions but different meaning, but then you could also connect them together, and then it is also going to enhance the efficiency of the in-house process considerably. And now we could utilize AI agents to do that, so that is one way we are moving, in other words, to upgrade this, utilizing AI agents. And by doing so, productivity and efficiency inside the company will be greatly enhanced. Second is, now by introducing LLM, my company is also, so not just selling hardware, but also selling software together. So in other words, providing total management systems. And by doing so, we can also, so on top of that, we can also have a value add by having easier management of utilizing AI. And third is in the product end. So on the product end, there could also be AI capabilities equipped on top of the product. And this is where we need a lot of creativity, because for the actual user. So this means we have to change the experience of the users. So in other words, what will the users be acceptable about? What will the users feel comfortable about? So that is what we have to think about. So in other words, to change the BM and enhance the efficiency, and also especially about coding. For coding, there is active involvement of AI, because if it is business to business, then of course there are different business partners who give us requirements. And it is also very difficult, very complex to manage all these different requirements coming from different partners just with humans. But now utilizing large language model, we could streamline the management of the different requirements, and of course we can also set up the process for doing that, meaning that we can all look at the same data while we do work. So that is the kind of tool that will greatly enhance efficiency. All right, thank you. So then your keywords, LLM, and also utilizing the generative AI in order to enhance in-house processes. So I would say that those were the things that really stood out for me. And then also enhancing continuity, then how will it make the company better? So higher profitability, well, less cost, lower cost, okay, lower cost, right, lower cost, and also higher productivity of the individual, so more things to be done. So higher productivity, lower costs, are going to fire people. That will make them do more work. So for example, in the past, we would sell only our in-house products, or let's say even if we wanted to scale up our business, there was the limitation on how much we can scale up with the people given to us. But then now, utilizing these people, we could also, do cross-selling. Perhaps that could be one potential. So that could bring about higher business value. So that is what we are aiming for. All right, thank you. So then, Mr. Lee Se-dol, now I met him for the first time, face to face. So when I was sitting in the lobby on the first floor, he was sitting right across from me with his wife. And I didn't want to make you uncomfortable, so I didn't, But then your wife, didn't she also play Go? No? Oh, okay. But now, the number of Go players, are they on the rise or on the way down? More? There are more Go players? That's interesting. Well, actually, Mr. Lee Se-dol, so of course, your story, I am looking it up quite a lot, but I believe that, so of course, I would say that you were at the forefront of experiencing AI, and then the consequences, so whether it is going to reduce jobs or whether it is going to promote things. So I believe that you were the first to experience this. And now I also look up trends about Go, how things have changed in the field of Go, because we will see similar changes in other fields. And in most cases, I see that now, in the past, people thought that, the game of Go, it was the kind of like the exclusive domain of the handful of people. But I believe that it has actually popularized the game. So of course, you said it so eloquently, but what can guide us? In other words, people now can get help from AI to bring them up to a certain level. So that kind of help people now can get from AI. So we don't have to worry about layoffs. Is that your point? Right. So even if AI were doing the coding, well, because even if it is AI doing the coding, then the existing programmers, then we could change their work. So then the entry level would be higher, right? The entry level would go up, but still, there would also be ways of connecting with other industries. Like, for example, if you can come up with the development process that could connect with other fields, then that requires creativity. All right, so then we were talking about work processes, and then now we are kind of digressing. But then now, let's say in the school, how we develop talent. Now then it seems like if you just know your own domain, then perhaps you're not too employable. Then that means that you now have to be more of a multiplayer, so hard to gain all that knowledge. Am I not right? Well, so perhaps that is why we are seeing more and more one-person startups. And also, for example, what the San Francisco consensus is saying is that, there is going to be like one-person startup that is going to reach $1 billion in the near future, for sure. So that means that one person will be capable of handling more. Socially, we can also call that polarization. But again, Mr. Lee Se-dol, so this Go player, genius player, so there were rumors that you're now a professor at UNIST. Am I right? Oh, KAIST is a better school. KAIST is a better school. And also, Mrs. Isedo, you should know this. Daejeon, where KAIST is, by train only 1 hour. So let's change name cards. And also in Daejeon, there are department stores, and also there are great lakes, mountains. So I saw the newspaper. I was surprised. He should be in KAIST. And I was also listening to your presentation, so it seems like you have already passed the interview. All right, so of course I will come back to XL1 later on in the next round, but so about how you develop the model and how come you're not opening it up, how come you're just keeping it in-house. So I will come back to you later on about the XL1. Well, then it's not developed by XL1, but then it's actually a LG AI Research Lab. It's a different company. And so they get the funding from different LG companies to develop this. It's the relationship is a kind of complex. All right, so I will come back to you.
Thirst, Lee Bona, Vice President at Samsung Electronics. So X in CX is interface, though it's experience. I use the word a lot, AIX, like expansion, expandable. So X in CX is experience, okay. So putting aside the technical aspects, how is AI going to influence our everyday life? And you're in a business or in a company, so from the business operation perspectives, what's your take? You just called me by my nickname, Bonamana. So it's a nickname that I earned in elementary school. But anyways, I'm going to give a talk from the customer perspective to find a balance for our panel discussion. So when it comes to Samsung, we are very much focused on in-home experience delivered to our customers. So we are very proactive in delivering our customers' experiences. For example, if a customer comes into the house, you just rest. We're going to do everything for you. We're going to save your costs and what you consider as valuable, like your family and health. We're going to care for all of that on your behalf. That's our motto. In order to implement these services, we leverage AI and expand the ecosystem, but relatively speaking, we have an advantage in this space. That's because Samsung Electronics manufactures home appliances, phones, so we have a very large portfolio. Our products are global top tier, and SmartThings is a very important connecting platform. But SmartThings has more than 300 million users around the world, connecting 20 billion devices already. So that is why, in leveraging partnership and technology, Samsung Electronics has a competitive advantage in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So to give you an example of household chores, for example, if you put a laundry in a washing machine, it's going to wash on its own. And if you put food ingredients in a kitchen utensils, then it's going to cook automatically. So last year, when it comes to washing machines and dryers, we combined these two devices and came up with a product called AI Combo. And consumers' pattern also changed afterwards. Before, we used to put like clothes in a washing machine, open the door and close the door and so forth, but they don't have to take a lot of actions and if you put a detergent inside the washing machine, you don't have to refill that every time. If you put a large amount of it, it's going to consume little by little, and the AI will let you know what is the cloth or the tissue or cloth of the clothes and how much it is contaminated. They're going to give you this tons of information based on AI. So if you just put the laundry and then take out, that's the only action you need to take. So ever since we introduced this product, people's and consumers' living lifestyle pattern also changed. So compared to using the washing machine alone, the combined product actually helped you to reduce time. For example, after you put laundry, you don't have to be there to take out the clothes for drying. So you just put the clothes in the morning when you go to work, and then you collect it afterwards. And for example, as for the air conditioner, if you near your house, the air conditioner would come on automatically. And as for the humidifier as well, and for example, you're at home, and when you fall asleep, the lightings go off and it becomes like really calm and quiet. So our slogan, or our AI home slogan, a goal, is to provide that kind of convenient service and lifestyle for our customers. So it has become a reality. But how can a product or home appliance know about me, my information, where I sleep and where I eat? It's actually known, or it can be collected through the information on your mobile phone or wearable devices. So as for ourselves, we're not just looking at the AI embedded products, but we're also looking at the information connecting different types of devices, and also information related with different contexts, so that the AI can be trained on that and evolve. I also have a few comments. When I first studied about AI, I thought about why not put on a camera on TV, and the camera would sense my eye gaze, where I'm looking at, and then the camera would also sense all the family conversations that we have, so that the camera or the AI would know what I like, my preferences and tastes, and recommend programs for us. But that means, they have to take our data, and AI should make recommendations based on that data. But what if Samsung Electronics can freely distribute TVs all around the world, and then we will give you all the data you need? That's the first option. And the second is, for example, we can put up a sensor on the refrigerator, and the sensor would know how much of meat we have and when's the expiration date of the eggs. So before we get home after work, we can have the meal kits delivered based on the information. So why not freely distribute refrigerators, or distribute refrigerators for free of charge? What do you think? I think that it's a proposal that would come out from a professor. Usually we say, I think your comment underlies that, I'm very ignorant. I don't have a good character. Why are you seeking consent from the person next to you? But anyways, yes, it's a very good insight that you just provided. Thank you for that. Of course, I have a lot to say, but from a refrigerator's perspective, what I can say is that inside the refrigerator, there is a technology that is embedded to list up the ingredients inside the refrigerator. So, of course, that kind of sensor will further evolve, and we'll be able to recognize more items going forward. But let me answer your question. For that to translate into shopping, data needs to be standardized. But there is no the API between different sectors is not very well defined yet. But yes, indeed, that is the direction and the path we want to go forward with, because we have the technology that is already available, because the refrigerator can know what kind of ingredients are inside the refrigerator and knows about the consumption pattern of the consumer. So for example, you can tell the refrigerator, these are the ingredients for the recipe. So what's possible right now is that we can identify the food items, and we can also look up the recipes with which we can make food. So you can use the voice recognition like Bixby. You can ask, what kind of items are in my refrigerator, and what kind of food I can make with the items inside the refrigerator. Yes, another question is that there is a 800 megahertz RFID. Is that something that you developed?
뭐 안테나까지는 해봤어.
I've developed up to the antenna.
수십 개 모고 딱 지나가면 동시에 센스.
So for example, if there is
이따가 또
a lot of things that pass through a very narrow channel, then we can sense all of things at the same time, parallelly and simultaneously. Anyways, now I'm going to move on to Hyundai.
So, Mr. Vice President Chu from HMC. So the robotics. So what were the robotics? The jumping robot? Yes, Boston Dynamics. So Boston Dynamics was acquired by Hyundai, right? So yes, in 2021. So you are now working together? Yes, we are. So collaborating. So it can also run marathons, do boxing, because I also see Chinese robots doing that. Well, Spot is four-legged robot, so it cannot box, but it can jump. Well, because now you're in robotics and vehicles, so then combined with AI, how will it change our everyday life is my big question to you. Right, so a lot of good things have been spoken by the previous speakers, and now for myself, I'm a software engineer doing research work in robotics labs, so let me just speak like a software engineer. Now AI, now from the field, it is no longer just exclusive domain of experts or for engineers only, or only for developers. So we see already that in reality, it is being broadly used. So for many developers, what we are feeling is that now for AI, now, we often talk about singularity, and we say that oftentimes for AI, now, it is already beyond the point of singularity in the everyday life. And when we look at how AI is being actually used, I think there are three types. First is when we are developing AI models, we are using AI. Now, AI developers, usually they are engineers. And so when there are a lot of engineers in the company, now we call them scientists. So anyway, so we have AI being used to develop AI. And then second is, now of course AI models like the foundational models or backbone models, so we are not developing them, but then now for example, transfer learning or also like a custom learning. So what we can do is that we can also customize the training for the AI, so that is also being applied with AI. And then the third is, I believe that this is where there are the most users, and also for the everyday use, and that is about the AI that's already been developed, like AI agent or generative AI. Of course, that there are many different words, but then now using them as a tool. So I see that in these three domains, they are being used quite often in the everyday life. So, for example, for more specific examples, let's say in the businesses, so if I may tell you about the robotics lab in Hyundai Motor Group, now again, AI being used to develop AI models. Now, for that, the example would be, now in Hyundai Motors, there is what's called the Playos. It's a software. So it is the OS to create the ecosystem to move on to the software-driven vehicles. Now, to develop the ecosystem, we are doing three things. Now, first is the AI agent. So we have developed the AI agent-based solution. And second is about ADAS. So that is developing the AI solution for ADAS to support self-driving. Another is to create the connectivity for the management, so we are also developing the AI solution for that. So for the kind of roadmap management, we are developing the new AI software, and then based on this, the new industries or new professions are being created, and we are also broadening the boundaries. So again, for AI, so by doing so, we are moving into the realms where AI can be more experienced on an everyday basis. And then now, second is, now again, I mentioned that the AI is also being broadly used in companies, also in manufacturing companies. So there is a smart factory that was opened in the US by Hyundai, and then also there is the Meta plant in Georgia state, and we have also opened that recently. So I'm sure that you have also seen the news articles. But so using AI and also AMI, ACV, and not only that, the processes and also quality inspection. So that is being done using AI. So a lot of that has already been automated utilizing AI. So looking at the automation, then we can see that the painting or these processes, they have been 100% automated. And also, now it is actually the chassis and the assembly that are the hardest to automate. So many companies are doing the research to automate. And for Meta plant, we have already achieved 40% automation. So 40%, what does this mean? Now, for other plants, it would be like 10% or at most 20%. But with this kind of automation, we can enhance our productivity. And last, for the ordinary users, then of course, AI is being used quite a lot for development purposes, like for the developers. And of course, Vice President Kim mentioned this from LG Electronics. But then now, for most of the software developers, now they are utilizing AI assistants or AI agents. So I'm sure that most companies are already using them. We are already. So the reason why is for higher productivity. And Mr. Lee So-do, he also mentioned this, but so I also was quite inspired by his talk. But anyway, so when we use AI assistant, how I feel is that now as a software developer, software engineer, now then I would have to spend 20-30% of my time on understanding the software trends. But then now, if I were to utilize the AI for the, let's say, mid-level, like mid-skilled engineers, then we can see that their level of productivity would go up quite a lot. And then now from the Harvard research, they say that utilizing AI would help your productivity by about like 17% or higher. Now, of course, how you measure their productivity really depends on the situation. But then now, let's say by time, then they have reduced the time up to 50% sometimes. That means that the productivity is almost double. So you see that it is being used quite a lot in the companies and then also in the everyday life, like utilizing generative AI, like ChatGPT. That has become part of our life. So again, by enhancing productivity, then one person can achieve a lot more. And of course, the professor also mentioned now with higher productivity, with use of AI, then wouldn't this lead to headcount reduction? Well, that I tend to think differently because now looking at the history and also the industrial development pathway so far, then of course I'm not an expert in all fields, but now for AI, usually for developers so I don't think this will drive out developers or drive out any companies out of the market. And rather, in the AI field, new professions would come up. Of course, some jobs might disappear, but then what the percentage is going to be, we cannot pinpoint that. But then now, as a developer on the field, what I am 100% certain about is that over time, AI driving out companies or driving jobs, that is not going to happen. But again, what I can be 100% certain of is that people, companies who use AI will be they will be replacing those that do not use AI. So that is one thing that I am sure of, what everyone is sure of. So these three things, so developing AI models and utilizing AI to develop the capabilities that we want and utilizing AI as a tool. So in these three domains, AI is already part of our industries, part of our life, because it can enhance productivity. So when we look at the development path of like steam engine development or industrial development, then I do believe that most companies will certainly move in this direction. All right, thank you very much for the very lucid explanation. Now, if I may give you an easier question. Now, let's say in my car, Grandeur. When will my car have AI? Because with AI, then it will drive and it will also have LLM capabilities. So I tell it to do certain things like park my car or refuel my car. I want to just get a fresh air, take me there. So when will this all be possible? Well, now from Hyundai Motors. Now, in Hyundai Motors, now the conversational capability is already there, but of course on a limited basis. Then also, I mentioned that we are moving the company to become a more software-defined vehicle. Now, our roadmap is by 2028. So what the professor has just asked about. So by 2028, you will be able to experience some of those. So that means Hyundai Motor stocks going up. Okay, so you're all laughing.
그것도 중요한
But
질문입니다.
now that is obviously a very important
그
question.
AI 기능이 차 안에
Okay,
있을
then
거, 엣지에
AI
있을 것 같아요. 클라우드에 있어서
capabilities. So will this be on the edge or will this be part of the cloud for wireless connection? Well, it is both. So the bidirection is all supported. So there would be the on-device capabilities and then also the on-cloud capabilities. But now for both the robotics domain and also the vehicle domain, so in a connectivity environment, right now the connectivity environment is not getting the performance that we want. So I would say that on-device, then also the server, so that's called this hybrid method. So then for the on-device method, so then you would need to have the inferential capabilities in the on-device. So will that also require HBM? Well, HBM is unavoidable, so you should believe. Yes, I do. All right, so then I will also come back to you. Thank you.
Next, I would like to give the floor to John Jacob, Vice President at TMAP Mobility. So from TMAP Mobility perspective or daily lifestyle perspective, what do you expect of AI?
저희는 그 내비게이션과 그리고 장소 추천 서비스
We provide navigation, map, location recommendation, and public transport services.
오늘 이제 그 컨퍼런스 오실 때 티맵을
And when on your arrival to here,
있으실 것 같습니다.
you probably used TMAP for your navigation. AI's pace of development is very rapid. So we are concerned, but at the same time, from TMAP perspective, it's a lot of opportunity. TMAP is working hard to actively introduce AI. We are under preparation, and probably at the end of last year, the navigation combined LLM services will be readily available. If you think about the GPS or navigation services, TMAP has been in this space for about 20 years. We used to be #1 player, and we used to ensure the convenient movement or mobility of people. So when it comes to technology of navigation, it has been developed a lot over the years. But in terms of usability by the consumers, there's been a slight change, but not many change. For example, on top of the map, there is a GPS positioned vehicle, and there is a display of speed and direction. So all of this information was made available to the user, but the approach was very similar. But when you combine AI with navigation, it completely transforms the user experience compared to the past. So that is why TMAP, we believe that navigation plus LLM services will be very useful for the consumers. And among others, there is the audio interface inside the vehicle. That is a very powerful service. For example, when you're driving a car, you have your hands on the steering wheel, so it's very difficult to use your hand for other purposes. But if you can leverage your voice or audio to manipulate all of these different buttons, that will be very useful. The current voice recognition services are quite limited. And for example, Professor Kim, you also worked with somebody on a project called Nugu. But Nugu is an audio assistant service, but it has limitations and yet it is very efficient. So when you're using TMAP and when you're driving a car, the commands that you give through audio is very much in a pattern. So for example, let's go home, let's go to work. So there are these predefined commands, and we only have to run those predefined predefined commands. So it will be not very difficult to provide new services based on LLM. But as the voice recognition technology is further advanced and evolved, and if we can control navigation based solely on audio, that'll be great and convenient for the consumers. And there are different types of contexts and needs of the users that need to be considered. For example, in looking for a location or providing public-related or public transport-related or traffic-related information. And users can also ask questions. And as for it, also conversation is also possible. So inside TMAP, we have a navigation-linked LLM-based AI agent that will be embedded, and by doing so, we'll be able to provide a more sophisticated voice recognition function.
또 이제 내비씬에서 또 이제 저희가 고도하고
And in the navigation scene, what we want to further elaborate is proposing itinerary.
여러 가지 또 이제 생각을 하시겠지만 이런 경로 추천도 저희가 더
When you recommend
개인화하려고
itinerary, we want to make it more customized and personalized. There are lots of needs from the consumers. For example, there are consumers who have preference to take more convenient road, whereas some others want to go for a more faster shortcut, even though the road condition is not that good. So there is this personal driving habit of individual drivers. So based on your preference, we can customize the routes and the itinerary so that we can provide more real-time recommendations to the users. And this itinerary recommendation logic sophistication will take place and will be embedded to AI. So there is the AI agent sophistication and voice recognition enhancement, and also customized and personalized itinerary proposed to clients. So this is the direction we take. So combination or integration with AI is a must for enhanced mobility, and I also want to share with you a few thoughts. Actually, AI is ultimately like replacing human brain, but medical imaging is not going to show everything. And in order to understand what a human being is thinking, we have to collect data, but there are two ways of collecting that data. First is through voice, because what we think will be spoken, and second is eyes, vision. But when it comes to eyes or vision, you need a very high resolution and depth cameras. But when it comes to securing mobility, LLM is critical. Therefore, human and AI interface to be able to make recommendation and manipulate through AI, we need LLM. So I would like to know when LLM will be embedded to TMAP mobility. When is the timing? It is quite confidential information, but you'll be able to meet LLM applied TMAP by the end of this year. Yes, we have high expectations for that. And the inference semiconductor, is it going to be on the edge or on the cloud?
차량의 이제 저희 TMAP이 현재 지금 사업 분야가
TMAP's business areas include mobile services, and mobile services are services available only on mobile devices, and there's TMAP Auto. So there is the Mercedes-Benz and BMW and Porsche. They are OEM vehicles, and it's 18 vehicle models that have our service as their infotainment system or service. But from the OEM vehicle, vehicles, it will be on-device AI, so on the edge, where LLM will be applied. But when it comes to mobile services, it will be on the cloud. But if you want to implement all that, you have to pay your employees, you have to pay for fees for using GPUs. So how do you generate profit at TMAP Mobility? Is it advertisement? How do you make return on your investments?
저희가 지금 BM이 크게 5가지가
We have 5 BMs, business models, and one of the biggest business models is data. So the user's mobility data is collected. We have 15 million MAUs, and the trip is about 6.7 billion per year, and users' personal search data are also available. Therefore, we make them into data product and sell it to companies. And when it comes to navigation, there is a route planning, ETA. So the APA is also sold B2B. And as mentioned earlier on, there is TMAP Auto product, and that is supplied to OEM vehicles as part of infotainment services. So we are a supplier, and that is also another BM. So as AI agent becomes more and more advanced, the TMAP auto product competitiveness is going to go up. So as AI agent becomes more advanced and we use more navigation, and there will be like voice data coming and data, search data coming from the customers. So all of that can expand our API B2B business. And we're making preparations to that end. So you mentioned about the value of data. So all the information in the navigation is all data. So can we know who is riding that car? So can we actually track down to individual level, or can we only track down to only vehicle level? So can you identify the individual itself? If you're using mobile through a mobile device, there is a mobile device owner. Please don't disclose my information. Yes, all of the personal information is encoded. The reason I'm asking you this question is because during COVID, there were lots of people coming in from China, and there were also like outbreak areas taking place in Korea. And we wanted to actually analyze the outbreak regions. So you have to know about the traffic of people. So one information could be credit card information. And the second information that could be useful would be telecommunication information. And the third would be a toll gate information. But I wanted to analyze all that, but I dropped the project because tracking is important, but there's a personal information issue. Yes, but it seems like navigation has more personal information. So as you said, privacy data is very critical. So there is data that could be stored on device. So data could be sold, but also it's very valuable because it can be used for training. But if it gets hacked, then you can close shop. Just like some company in Korea where the chairman came to apologize. But anyways, to the public. Yes, so that is why the further the AI is advanced, privacy and security is important because. So you can say that AI algorithm is considered as a transformative model. And that is why the number of GPUs as well as training data will determine the direction of businesses. But how we secure data is different from sector to sector. And from our lab, we design a semiconductor with AI. So we create data with computer simulation, what we call physical AI. But I think that robots and automobiles, it should be different.
So now thank you very much for your patience. Now the CEO of Real World. So I've heard about Cyber World, but then now Real World. What are you doing? And also now it's been 30 years since we last met. So now how many children do you have? Are you married? Right. So about my personal matters first. Right. So then what is your work with AI and how do you envision your future with AI? So you can have 10 minutes. Well, thank you very much for giving me this special chance as an alumni. So yes, it's great to see you again, Professor. And when I was a student, I didn't know he was such a funny person. He always gave us a lot of homework. And so you were in my class? Yes, I was. And I'm not sure what grade you gave me, but I do remember it was not A+. But anyway, so yes, in the same electronics engineering professor. I was a student, and since then, yes, I have been having a good life. So I'm married with one daughter in middle school. Does not listen to me at all. And without AI, she cannot continue her lifestyle. So more so than any friend, she says that she finds it easier to talk to AI. Right, so how did AI change our lives? Rather than changing our lives, I would say it redefined our lives. So now it's difficult to imagine a life without AI. Of course, that depends on the level of acceptance, depends on the generation, depends on the situation. But now again, redefining our lives. So AI. Now it's actually like it's more like a hikikomori. In other words, it is just staying by itself. So it is like a brain in a box. It hasn't really seen the outside world. So it's like a lonely figure stuck in his own room, darkened room, just looking at the computer screen. In other words, it is just looking at all the data, images uploaded on the computer and pretends as if it is understanding the world. But then now, if I were to compare this to a Go player, it has never held the Go player, and so in other words, it would just see everything as pixels and has never touched the Go playboard. And that is why my company is named Real World. For AI to surpass human beings or to be our true companion, then it has to leave this isolated room. And then now to leave this isolated room, it needs a body. So then what we call it the embodiment. In other words, it also needs to have a body as a vehicle to carry this. But a lot of people talk about humanoids being useless. So rather than having 2 arms and 10 fingers, wouldn't it be better to have like 10 arms and 100 fingers? That's right, but then now there are some steps for us to take to get there. Before AI becomes the god, it has to go through the human body. Why? Someone talked about data. Now, how human beings work, how human beings hold the Go horses, and how people serve, how waiters serve in the restaurant. So we have so much data about that. But then now, how someone with 8 arms would work in a factory, we have no data for that. So sometime in the future, AI will realize that itself and will learn to do it on its own. We are already seeing that. But before that, the human civilization has to be learned and accepted by AI and the robotics. And to do that, then, like AI, AMI, like the wheeled robotics, not only that, but then now in the future, perhaps like 100-arm robotics, not those, but then we need to have the kind of robotics that have the same physique as the human beings, and to see how much training data we can get. That is the key. So one gateway toward the physical AI in the future is to have the humanoids, or the kind of intelligence that could move around like the human body is going to be essential. So then we would need to be able to control, I'm not sure whether we can control, but then now control these humanoids. So in other words, thinking like a human being and also interacting with human beings. So that is what we do. We create such humanoids. Then also LLM, now you just get the text data, LLM will run. Where do you get the text data? So this isolated person, they can just drag all this data. And then Google, of course, will do the best, because Google has the most text data in the world. So then US companies will excel, obviously, including Palantir. So the human civilization, most of it is written in English, so that is obvious. But then now, if we are to produce robotics to work in plants, Who has the most plants in the world? China,
일본, 한국.
followed by Japan,
제조
Korea.
강국이
So
제조를
manufacturing
잘하는 로봇
powerhouses.
기계를 잘 만들 수밖에
Manufacturing
없어요.
powerhouses are bound to
저는
create the
한국에서
best robotics for manufacturing, and that is
일본에서
why I
많이
created
받았어요.
this company in
한국,
Korea.
일본,
I also got a lot of
한국
investment
정도는
from
어울릴 수
Japan.
그런
So
양대 제조 강국의 데이터를 먼저
for
끌어올 수
these
있으면
two powerhouses in
먼저
manufacturing,
일본에서 일할 수
if we
있는
can get the
로봇
data
기능을
from
만들 수
these
있지
two
않을까
countries, then perhaps we
지금 그
could
데이터
create the kind of
끌고
robotics
오는데 열심히
intelligence
운임을 다
that
기울이고
would
있고
be fit
여기 나와
for
계신
the
대기업
manufacturing
중에
field, and that is what we are doing now. And of course, among the large companies here, we have received investment from two already. We are in discussion with the other two. And of course, this is a forum created by the Seoul Economic Daily, so this is what I want to say. How AI is going to change the world, rather than this question, what we are doing now. So it could be offline, like old-fashioned work, whatever it is. So whatever work that you're doing, whatever business that you're doing. So if we are to restructure this completely based on AI, then what is the data that we have to see? And how can we apply AI to restructure this work? And if you continue for the next 5, 10 years, then in your field, you would be the best AI company in the world. So perhaps you're not an AI company now, but then in the future, you will turn yourself into an AI company based on the data that you can collect now. All right, thank you. So I see that you are much better spoken than when you were a student. Well, of course, I'm much older now, so I should be upgraded. Otherwise, I will lose out to AI. So I also listened to the presentation, but KAIST, you were a chair of a certain committee for KAIST or whatever. No, I never wore such hat. You should be the president of KAIST soon. Well, I also want to run away to UNIST. So no. So maybe you can make 20 trillion won and donate 1 trillion to KAIST. We will dedicate a building to you. If I make 20 trillion, then yes, I will donate 1 trillion. Oh, I have the pledge from you. If I do make 20 trillion, I'm sure that's possible. It will be possible. Palantir, what's your net worth now? Palantir? Stock ranking? What is your stock ranking? Have that dream. I recognized you 30 years ago. I saw you 30 years ago, and you will make it. Oh, he stood up all of a sudden, so I thought that perhaps 1 trillion will not be enough, but right, so I'll say that I make enough for my living, but well, may I keep standing? Well, because so many people now move to med schools. So many students go to med schools. And so you're a doctor, yes, and you graduated from science school? Yes, I graduated from Seoul Science School. At that time, the best students were from Seoul Science School. Those with the best personality were from Hansong Science School. You're right, but I was in Seoul Science School because at that time we did not have Hansong Science School. So that is why a good personality like me went to Seoul Science School. So then So Seung-hwa, so they are all your alums. Yes. So anyway, so yes, it's thanks to people like him we are where we are now. But again, we are at a crisis for engineering talent. And what I am thinking is that the parents, rather than sending them to med school prep schools, to send them to engineering science schools, then you need to build a big house in the middle of Seoul to show off your success. So today I was also passing through the central area of Seoul. So we are at Shilla Hotel, right? So I see that area, like billions of won in housing, and so I believe the KAIST graduates should have their own town there. Yes, I do believe the scientists should be rich. Any doctors here? I should watch out. Anyway, so profession of doctor, I believe will disappear in about 20 years, because fixing human body in the future, it is going to be a concept that will be difficult to accept, because in the future, when humans drive, we will think, oh, how can humans drive? So in the future, we will see the day and age where people will say, oh, how can people touch such holy human bodies? So everyone here, So including mine, our jobs will disappear. So in front of AI, in front of machines, we are bound to be intelligently inferior. So it's like AI is a religion for you. No, it's not a religion, it's a fact. And I think that is something that we need to accept with happiness. Because human beings being the most superior being, and that is why we compete against each other, because we think that we are the smartest. So we cannot accept others being smarter than me. So you study. So I also studied quite a lot, and I went to science school, I went to KAIST, but sometimes I feel that it is all meaningless. Well, if you're over the age of 40, everything feels meaningless. But I'm over 50, so yes, it feels meaningless. So then for human beings, intelligently, human beings cannot surpass AI, then I think that will make people happier. So then we do not have to compete, we don't have to study, no one would want to go to KAIST. We will just be happy. I'm not a churchgoer, but 2 weeks ago, in front of priests, I gave an AI talk. I talked about AI, how AI could replace religion. Like for example, confessions can be given to AI, not to priests. Have you ever thought about that? And also priests, I asked them, have you ever really met God? Have you ever heard God's voice? If not, you can listen to LLM. Well, I'm not joking, but the confessionals, the teenagers, they give their confessionals to the AI. But for LLM, the priests, now they forget the confessions, but then LLM will remember, right? So in the cloud, somewhere in the cloud, it will all be there, yes. And it will all be connected to the navigator, connected to the freezers, yes. And also connected to all the products. And also Palantir, you will be looking down from the satellite. Yes, a beautiful future. Now, so Dr. Yu, so real world, so now I understand what you're doing. Then if I may just summarize. So in manufacturing, to combine with AI to maximize productivity, so that is what you do. So you need GPU, but also you need data for training data. And of course, since we're a school, now we say that even such data can be created through computer simulation. So I believe that you already have the answer, but then now those who are in the robotics, I try to stay away from them, the robotics people, because robots are so expensive. They are much more expensive than the housekeepers that we can hire. Well, people's value, they are valueless, aren't they? Well, that's in the moral books. But anyway, so also about the batteries. And then the cost. So we need to make sure that the cost would be affordable. So you believe that there will be a business opportunity where you will have the affordable cost, right? Yes, because the robots being too expensive, that notion is going away because in China we are seeing bigger and bigger ecosystem, and of course the hardware price would fall when there is bigger scale. And let's say right now, so in the future, there are going to be like 6 billion robots. So they say that what will sell more than vehicles, what will sell more than smartphones, it is going to be robotics, especially humanoids. That is what we all say. So then from that perspective, the price will fall astronomically, and also the robotic structure. Now, it is very hard to create the kind of robots that move like human beings. The human hand, how many joints are there? Normally 20, 22 joints. Now, the robotic hand to move like the human hand, then they say that we need to have over 15 degrees of freedom. That means that we need to have 15 motors in the hand. Very, very challenging. Aside from the hand, the upper body is 14 degrees of freedom. So the hand is like the brain. So including the hand, then it is going to be like 30 degrees of freedom. So then the human movements, so they say that the AI with the best human hand movements is going to be the ultimate AI. So that is what we are trying to do. But anyway, so such complex looking AI, so it's all about actuator, how the actuator is being designed. And that design is being upgraded very fast. So if that design becomes universal, then it becomes a matter of the cost of the materials, the components and the parts. And then now, once it goes beyond a certain threshold, so I think that that is going to be the hardware singularity. Robots producing robots. There is going to be a big inflection point. And I do believe that that can be like a continuum for the next decade. So in the next decade, then one humanoid would be like 20, 30 million won or cheaper than that. So it'll be much cheaper. That'll be like 6 months of human salary, so would be made much cheaper than it is today. So it's like a brain, or are you saying that we need to have a brain to move this? Two things. So we need to have a high degree of freedom of hardware to make this possible, and also what people call brain or what people call intelligence. Now, much of it consists of language or like some kind of like metaphysical symbols, but in actuality, so that is what we think. But then in actuality, there is a large part of your intelligence comes from touching things and doing things. Then follow me. Open up your palm and put these two together. Oh, I thought I would be in trouble. Just the middle finger? No, do this, do this. I also saw this. And then your little finger, will this move? So if your little finger still moves, then your brain is still young. So yes, I see that, Dr. Yu, your brain is still alive. Yes. So AI robotics, maybe you can also make them do things like this. So twisting your fingers like this. So this is actually part of the mystery of the human body. Robot hand, crossing their fingers like this. If they can do this, that means that the hardware is excellent. So the robotic hardware that we're co-developing now, it can cross its fingers. So it is going to be the first time in the world. So you're like a cult leader now. Well, because I'm doing this now, this hand signal. So I'm not trying to sound like a cult leader, but then I'm just trying to share with you the future that I am seeing now. I sound like a cult leader, but that means that the technology is developing so fast. So for lay people to create a better future, to become happier, then study just a little bit more and imagine just a little bit more. And what's more important, think about what you're doing now and also AI and robotics development. How can they be combined to each other? So if you can be more creative about that, then I think you will be able to have a much happier life. All right, thank you very much. So will it be like 22 billion that you got invested? Will that be enough? No, not nearly enough. I mean, we're just burning through the money. We need to make robotics, we need to make GPU, we need to pay all these awesome PhDs, so we keep getting this funding. So you're saying that you're burning through the money. Then who is it? OpenAI, Sam Altman? He says that he is burning through the GPUs. Well, GPUs are money. Well, because they're too hot. But what is busy is HBM. HBM is also burning. So you're starting and ending with HBM today. Right, so that is also burning. And so now let us go to the second round.
자, 여러분들이 이제 우리가 이런 일상과 산업 생활에서 AI가 이제 적용이 되고
Now, AI is being used in your daily lives, in your daily business operations, and the conditions that need to be met is you need an AI model. Do you want to develop it in-house? Do you want to have a foundation model? Are you going to have open source, or are you going to pay for it? How are you going to secure GPUs as well as data? These are the important questions that you need to prepare and address. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Creighton. What kind of preparations is Palantir making? So Palantir, is it an AI company?
I'd say we're an AI company. We're not building our own LLM, though.
Okay.
And I think that was our observation as well. When generative AI first came out and became more publicly available, a lot of companies were racing to then build their own LLM. For some companies, this makes sense. Maybe this is more in line with their business. But for others, traditional manufacturing companies, suddenly feeling like they want to invest in this, it made sense at the beginning, but perhaps what we're observing is that it's more of a distraction from them just actually using the LLMs that are out there and then making sure that they have the flexibility to use the right LLM. We see a world where the LLMs are very quickly already becoming a commodity, and many companies are, there's a couple of that are distinguishing themselves as being the better providers of LLMs, but the different models, what we are seeing, are better suited for different tasks. And what we feel is more important is to have flexibility in being able to choose the right LLM for the right task, and a framework that can also change, because as we're all saying, it's evolving so quickly that the best model today may not be the best model tomorrow. And so if you're starting to make investments in using AI in your business, you want to make sure that you're not then beholden and trapped to that first decision that you made, and have the ability to swap and change and exchange these models as needed. And equally, have the flexibility within one process to have different models, again, that are specialized, and utilizing them in the best way possible. So we're advocating more of that flexibility and freedom to choose and adapt. but we're not investing in building our own ourselves.
오케이. 뭐라고 말씀하셨냐면 이제 플렉서빌리티를 굉장히 다양한 시츄에이션에서
Yes,
다양한
so we
라이트
have
모델을 쓰기
to
위해서
have the flexibility to be able to use the right model for different tasks.
쓰시는 것 같습니다.
So you are using outside LLM model.
You may have very good amount of data. So probably.
Well, Palantir, we don't have our own data. We basically provide a framework for organizations to use their own data. And so it would be for each organization, obviously when you're using an
Palantir
LLM.
is a kind of framework of providing solution
Yeah, so
company.
software for enterprise operations. That's
I
right.
see. But at some time, if the AI is more crucial for your business, your dependency on your customer AI models might be a little bit risky. Do you think so?
I think we're just enabling companies to use whatever makes the most sense. Obviously in some cases where developing their own models or leveraging that's something that they can do and integrate, especially when there are maybe sensitive decisions that need to be made. But then having the ability to also use that in combination with other models may make sense because some external models may perform better for certain things. But then for some areas where, as everyone was saying, the data is incredibly sensitive and you want to be thoughtful on how you use it, it may make sense to use more in-house models.
Okay. 한국에 3년 반 계셨다고 그랬잖아요.
So you've been in Korea for past 3.5 years.
You've been here for 3.5 years. Are you happy here or are you going to live here?
I love it here. No, Seoul has been such a welcoming city, so it's been really nice to be here, and I hope I'll be here for a lot longer.
I hope so. 다음에 우리 김영준 LG 전자.
Now moving on to Mr. Kim at LG Electronics. So you mentioned about EXA. So I think that this is not for general public. So it was also in the foundation model ranking chosen by Stanford. So you mentioned about data and GPU. How do you plan to secure all of this and also develop or secure AI talent, which is a very difficult thing to do? The EXA1 model at our AI Institute is just one of all the other models that we use. In China and also in the US, there is Llama and Lava, the open models that are available. So from on-device perspective, I think there are three important things. So there is a cluster model, so the OpenAI, ChatGPT, and as for Gemini, it is also a closed model. So it's a very top-performing model that you can maximize the use. But when it comes to this world, there is a very well-structured text. But in order to also do well in the analog physical world, we need something that's outperforming and on-device. So there's the EXA1 model, the US model, the Chinese model, that all can be used, combined, so that we can fine-tune a new domain, or we can embed a new encoder to come up with a completely different model. So that's the kind of approach we take. So the data in the pre-trained model may not be fit for the problem solving that solving the problem that we have. So in that case, we need to fine-tune in collecting our data to be able to develop our own model. From the pre-training perspective, we of course need massive amounts of data. But from the post-training perspective or fine-tuning perspective, we should have the ability to evaluate well the data quality and also collect high quality data. That is all the more critical. And whether you're going to leverage this data to go for action or determine logic, so depending on the use, the data quality should be different. So we need to build our understanding surrounding all of these elements so that we can improve or boost usability of AI in our daily lives. So the keywords that I can draw from your speech is that, yes, we can develop AI in-house, but we can also make a hybrid type of AI through outsourcing. And there's lots of tools out there. I basically also call this like AI architect. There's reinforced learning, mobile learning. So you combine all of these different usages, and sometimes you use open source, and sometimes you do it in-house. So everything boils down to data, not human. Before we said everything boils down to human. Of course, that is very important as well, but it is the data left by humans. One of the mottos I have in life is that there is only one life. We can only eat 3 meals a day, and we die at the age of 100, but AI will never die and never perish. So leaving the data for the use or the intention, use of intention is very important because framework and everything changes, but this relational data should be of quality so that we can create added values on top of that. So the process of structuring all of that is critical. So we will build our experience. For example, in the beginning, AI seems to be very important, and there is transformative model, and then we can buy GPUs with money, but data is the most important competitiveness. It was a weak perception that we have in the academic circles, but I came to realize the growing importance of data. And nowadays we use HBM on the server only, but we need large model on the edge. Yes, HBM builds DRAM, but we want to do a flash. We want to build flash memory as well. That's the background of HBM. So it's a matter of volume or a matter of speed. From in the mobility, the LPDDR and NAND flash memory building or stacking could be a solution. So just a tip for you. Now moving on.
So now it is Vice President Bona Lee from Samsung Electronics. So yes, we're talking about various scenarios, various experience. And now, of course, in order to achieve them all, of course, you need the scenario, but also you need to work with the hardware people, AI people, data people, and also report it to the higher ups. So how do you do all of them? Right, so whenever we want to do a meeting, then we need to have all the departments together, dozens of people. So yes, it is not easy to lead all this effort. And if I may just respond to the prepared question, then now in our case, now for the customers, what they experience in terms of the AI, then we have Bixby utilizing LLM. So Bixby is on the household appliances, and that is because to control the household appliances and actually the questions for the household appliances, the scope is limited. So some of them that are being used quite a lot, and they would be on device, and some of them are on the cloud. So yes, we have the Bixby. So yes, let's say refrigerator, open the door opens. And or the washer, open the door, opens, and or you could ask about the state of the filter in the air conditioner, it will tell you. So unlike other LLMs, the Bixby LLM, it is specialized for the connected household appliances. So it is the Gauss. Well, it is also used to validate part of Gauss. So you decided not to use Gauss. No, that's not the case. Did you make that decision? No. I don't have that authority. But we are utilizing Gauss partially in-house as well. So Bixby is a voice assistant. So you ask Bixby, it answers. And then also in the kitchen, you do work. And then you say, Bixby, clean up the refrigerator area. And then then the robot cleaner that is connected would come over and clean up the area nearby the refrigerator. So that's what Bixby does. Another is, I mentioned this briefly, but then it also has the AI vision camera. So we have the AI vision camera on some appliances. So on one hand, yes, we need to get the data, but then now on the other hand, what the customers want to do. So the actions that they want to take, we can provide seamless connection, and that is what the camera is for. And it is already introduced in some countries, but let's say on the cooking utensils, then there would be these sensors or some devices, and then now, let's say it recognizes that I'm trying to cook pizza, then it will show pizza recipes on the monitor and so forth. And by doing so, so you can get more support along the way. And another is, now this is actually not AI, but now not only the AI capabilities on the products, but we believe that the connection is also highly important. And that would also be a big part of the home automation. So if I may just tell you about the case from last week, there's the accessibility ERG. So together with the members of the accessibility ARG, so we have visited a training school for disability support dogs. And so these are for visually impaired. And then now they also showed me a video of their everyday. And then I was reminded that, oh, if we could upgrade AI and the MD more, then we could also give them quite a lot of help. So it was a chance for me to really solidify my commitment. But then now, you could turn on the air conditioner, but then you may not see that the windows are open. So the smart sensor could also sense that to close the windows. And also the cooker, you control this by dial, but then now sometimes it's hard to tell what temperature it is, especially for the visually impaired. And then now you can be connected to the smart button. And then let's say you press the left button, then this is for like chicken nuggets that your children love at 180 degrees. So you could just press that button, or the right hand button, then you could cook up instant rice, or for example on the microwave 2 minutes. So that is what they're doing. I mean, they set these like buttons here and there for certain functions. And of course in our smart capabilities, and there's also the capability called talkback. So the machine could tell you what the temperature is, or also the new devices that also tell you vocally what the parameters are, what the set parameters are. But then I once again reminded myself that we need to make it easier for everyone. So if I may just sum up, then yes, at Samsung, like LLM or Bixby and AI vision technology, and also use-based connection, and also multi-device or customized AX. So utilizing all of these technologies, we are changing slowly the kitchen that we use, and also to make sure that the AI, these technologies and the appliances will be accessible by all. All right, thank you. So then now I have 5 siblings in my home, and also my wife's side, there are like 11 siblings, so I have a lot of nieces and nephews. So one day on the weekend, I was having a brunch with some of them, and I also gave them some like schooling tips, and I used the term CX. And so what I thought was that if I were to be like you, then I could tell my nephew, what to major, what should they major, like design or AI or whatever he can major, but come to Samsung Electronics. So new materials, okay, yes, just come to Samsung Electronics, because we also have open recruitment. So that is going to be in the second half. So will it be better after undergraduate, or after master's, or after PhD? Well, if he wants to do CX, then not much of a difference, because inside the company we have a lot of training programs. We even have certificate programs, degree programs, and also inside the company you also have a chance to experience other departments, so you can learn. In Samsung, you have DS and DX. You are in DX. Yes, so DX is phone, TV, home appliances. So you're in home appliances? Yes, customer electronics. All right. Yes, so that is what we produce. But DS is like semiconductors, display for industries. Okay, yes, Samsung. Way to go. Because Samsung, the National Pension Service holds a lot of your stocks. Okay, thank you.
Next, Mr. Ju from HMC Robotics Lab. So in order to envision that kind of future, the model, infrastructure, humans, and data, what kind of vision do you have with regards to these aspects? As Mr. Kim also mentioned, we are in a very similar position, meaning that when it comes to robotics, 50% of the engineers majored in mechanical engineering. They develop hardware and work on control. And of course, they also deal with reinforcement learning and other types of AI. But other engineers majored in computer science and electrical engineering. So as Mr. Kim mentioned, and also as Ms. Creighton also mentioned, we sometimes develop models in-house. Sometimes we use open source, or we revise and revisit the existing models. To be more specific, since we deal with robotics and robots, we value like on-device, and there's a vision-based detector and perception, and there's a sound source separation and event detection technologies that are already out there. Because LLM is not like omnipotent, because sometimes there are open source commercially available that could be useful. There are lots of like good open sources and frameworks, so sometimes we don't need to develop our own model. But when it comes to LLMs, the same goes for Palantir. They use a lot of resources. We use a lot of resources, and you have to think about cost effectiveness. And sometimes when we think that we believe open source is better, we use optimization and knowledge distribution and these types of approaches. So whether we're going to develop in-house or use open source or modify through customization, the decision is based on our target device, the resources, and the characteristics of the models that we intend to use. It's based on all of these considerations that we make decisions in R&D. What about hiring talents? If you look at the news media, we see that AI experts are very expensive, and they also go overseas a lot, like to Palantir and other companies. AI talent, we lack a great deal of AI talent. There are lots of researchers involved with the field of AI. There are many in great numbers, but our founding chairman of Samsung Electronics, what he said is that one genius scientist is going to feed 10,000 engineers. And from 2000 and onwards, collective intelligence was considered as important rather than individual intelligence. But I believe that we have now gone back to the past. We need a top of the top tier engineer in AI. They will collaborate with other engineers to come up with the top of the top model. So there is a resource issue and cost issue. There are many types of issues out there, but we truly need an outstanding, we have an outstanding LLM, but there are few companies who can come up with this top-performing, outstanding LLM. Maybe it's because of resource issues, data issues, but we truly need a great field of engineers who have the great expertise in this field. So from the company's perspective, we're working very hard to hire skilled workers, but we face a lot of challenges in reality. We have 7 panelists. You have to ensure the survival of 10,000 engineers per company. That's 70,000 engineers in total. I think that mathematics is very important. You need like mathematical skills. When it comes to becoming an expert in AI, I think mathematics and math is vital in nurturing AI talents, because everything is very much related with logical thinking, mathematical thinking when we make decisions. So DeepSeek developers in China China, they majored in mathematics, most of them. And U.S. lacks a number of mathematicians compared to India and China. Now I'd like to turn it over to John Jacob from TMAP Mobility.
Then listening to your talk earlier, I thought that at TMAP Mobility you would have a lot of data, which could be a powerful weapon, but not only that. Of course, you need to have the resources, you need to have the GPU models, you need to have people. So what do you do? Outsourcing, or what is your strategy? Right, so like you said, now we do have an abundance of data, so AI combined innovative services, so we could upgrade the experience and also upgrade the usability. So yes, we do have quite a lot of positive opportunities, and that is why we are also actively looking into AI. But we do not have our own foundational model. Then what is going to be our approach is the current thinking. Now, in order to get started quickly, we could utilize external LLM. So that is one way of thinking. And then also inside the company, there is what's called the A.X. So A.X is also a foundational model. So in some realms, we could also use A.X. So overall, like I said earlier, so for the voice agent and also chat-based agent, so we'll first design the overall architecture to include them all. And then now within the architecture, we could use A.Dot, or in some parts, we could also use the outside LLM with better performance. And then, so that should be the service architecture overall. And then, of course, this will drive up the cost. So we also need to have our proprietary foundational model is another thinking. Now, to make this possible, then, as Professor has mentioned, that we also need human resources. It would need a lot of investment. And also, our proprietary LLM has to be more competitive than the outside LLM, meaning that this would also going to be costing quite a lot. So then that cost, and then also using outside LLM, upgrading it, and comparing the cost between them. And we are coming up with the strategy for the short term, mid term, and the long term. Well, thank you very much for the very good summary. So, but then now looking at the national level, I do believe that we need to have a foundational model. But then now, depending on the business sector, you could have your own model or outsource model. You could create an overall architecture to utilize the model efficiently for different businesses. So thank you very much. A great learning for me. Now then, last but not least, then.
Now, Mr. Liu, so I told you that you have to make 20 trillion won first. So how are you going to address the data issue and all the other issue? And in order to nurture people like you, like a top talent, what should KAIST do? I will give you additional 5 minutes. I think that we have already exceeded our time, but you are going to give me 5 more minutes. Actually, we only have to end the session by 11:30. Anyways, thank you for giving me a lot of time. When it comes to model, we were founded to develop foundation model. So the businesses and all the other panelists here, you can use other sources, outside sources, but our company was founded to develop a world top-tier foundation model. So in order for that to be possible, we need like geniuses of geniuses. So we are getting a lot of people from KAIST as well as post-tech, so outstanding professors. So that is why we wanted to develop a robotics foundation model. The language-based foundation model development and that era is over. Even though we engage in this business now, we cannot win against Meta or Google. But robotics is a little bit different. If you're going to develop an LLM, we know what kind of pipeline you need, but we lack engineers, data, and GPU. That is why we cannot make it. But in the robotics, it's a very niche area, meaning that we don't know what kind of data needs to be ingested. We don't know what kind of pipeline we have to develop. For LLM, in order to get an answer, it requires 1 to 2 seconds to get that answer. But for robots, it doesn't matter. But for robots, it has to move at sub-millisecond time, so almost real time. So in order to manipulate robots in real time, it's not very much in sync with LLM. So that is why we have to redesign the foundation model. And that is why we believe that our robotics foundation model will be available by the end of this year. There is Professor Shin Jin-woo. He is actually chief scientist, and he majored in mathematics. And I also gave a speech during his marriage, actually, Professor Shin. Yeah, he's a genius. He is a true genius. So he graduated from MIT and is currently at Georgia Tech. And we actually invited him as a dean of our department. And that was even before AlphaGo era. But I heard that he is the top expert in Korea, but he also got married here in Korea. So he's truly happy. He has a very cute baby. Yes, so I attended his wedding to give a speech at the Joseon Hotel, and I met Professor Shin 1 month ago, and I told him, "What are you working on these days?" He said, "I'm working on robots." So what do you do in robots? Do you have things to do? Of course we do. We have lots of things to do. Yes, so if Professor Shin is not doing his job, I would like to ask you to tell me, because I attended his wedding and he graduated from KAIST, and sometimes in the past he used to work for Naver as well, but I don't think he no longer does. Let me briefly talk about the background of my company. Professor Shin also used to have a space at Naver and to do his research, but he said it was not easy to do his research there. Don't they support GPUs? They don't assign GPU there. So I also have people that I know at Naver, and I said, why? They even don't have GPUs for research. A100, they have 2,000 and 2,000 sheets, but it's very difficult. They have lots of things going on. So because we don't have GPU, we cannot make foundation model, that's not the question you have to ask. You have to think about how can you make a foundation model without leveraging GPU. So that's the question that we're trying to delve deep into. And how can we do this? Through data. Of course, you may think that we can simulate data, but between the real world and the simulator, there is a huge gap. So even if the robot runs well on simulator, never is the case in the real world. So that what we have to do is we have to go into the factory, go into the convenience store, go into the hotel, and you have to capture how they work in real time, real world. And that is why I have faith that Korea and Japan can excel in this area. Why I mentioned about simulator is that, if a vehicle hits a pedestrian or hits a tree, we cannot create a real-time scenario. Of course, that is possible for the high-level intelligence, and LLM has already done that, so we don't have to repeat that. That high level has been already defined, but what we have to focus is then, to grasp the object and then throw the object. So Hanwha, the baseball team, is doing very well, but I think that we need better players at Hanwha. I didn't know you were a Hanwha fan. So what Professor Shin told me is that when I asked him, what are you doing and what's the difficulty and challenge? And he said it's the security, because the robot can go out of its mind and hit somebody that's next to you. But actually, Professor Shin is working something that is more extraordinary than that. Do you think that in 5 to 10 years' time, it will be difficult? I think that it will be difficult. It will be easier for us to simulate the data because it will also become more sophisticated. Actually, simulator can be good at enhancement, reinforcement, but it is not cost-effective compared to getting the original data because there are lots of unexpected factors and in real world. So if you use NVIDIA Omnibus, you cannot actually emulate and simulate the real world. So there will be cost involved in creating a very top-performing simulator, but the cost in getting the data from real world and the sensors cost is much cheaper right now for the time being. So if we collect all the data, the memory actually cost is going to up compared to GPUs. So if we move physically right now, it's much cheaper, and that is why we're going out there to this actual site. So the final line could be like the welding line for the automobiles or the semiconductor lines. Yes, so we are currently under discussion with all of these large corporations. For example, on site, it could replace hoteliers, replace convenience store workers, employees. So you have to get a massive investment, maybe at 1 trillion level. So do you have a plan to move your head office to Silicon Valley? It is in preparation. Can I do something for you? I think you will have lots of things. You could have lots of things to do with us. And to answer your last question, how can we develop future generations? When I was studying at KAIST, class and research were not number one priority. It was dating, going on dates. How did you find out at this very early age? Well, I was young, and that's why. But dating is no longer important for me because I'm married. Anyways, in the era of AI, if AI exceeds the humans, so humans could become happier. But as an animal, humans have the desire to, look nicer, to socialize better, and to eat better, to sleep better. I think that is the ultimate value that we need to pursue as humans. Earning a lot of money and all that, that's a means. But if everything is reversed, then we cannot become happy as an animal. So if we understand that fact, then naturally, I think that we will pursue as to how we can become happier, and we end up doing things that we want to do. So I think it's something that we have to also change in Korean society. Why do people don't have babies? Because the mom and dad are not happy. Or maybe it's because there are lots of TV programs that talk about divorce. And yes, those TV programs and Instagrams, they all have problems because we continue to compare ourselves with others. But I think that we really have to focus more on our needs, our animal-like needs, to be happier. So, what about the students at KAIST? Actually, people who do not attend classes a lot, come to classes a lot, tend to become more successful. Actually, when I was teaching students at KAIST, I could see that through their eyes, in their eyes. There was the guy called Baek Sung-woo, and he would never come to my class. But anyways, he looks something like you. And you both had that, keen eye and commitment. Actually, Baek Sung-woo and we became close when going to creating a club during a school festival, and we used to DJ. Anyways, DJing for us was more important than going to class. Anyways, I understand what you're saying. So you have to have the expert knowledge. You need to have the social skills and become more human. So I was given this topic, lifestyle revolution, AI integrating into everyday life, to chair the discussion. So I hope you enjoyed the panel discussion, and please give it up for our panelists.
그래서 우리 다 같이 미래를 AI에 끌려가는 게 아니라 개인적으로나 산업적으로 우리가
Let's not let AI lead our future and we follow, but be the case, the reverse case. Thank you very much, the 7 panelists, for your present panel discussions. Please give them a big hand as they step down their stage. Yes, so this concludes the first session under the theme, The Lifestyle Revolution, AI in Daily Life and Industry. Now we'll proceed to the second session after lunch break. So we will begin second session at 1:30. Please remain seated for lunch as the hotel staff will begin serving lunch in order starting from now. And when you will go out of this hall, please take all of your belongings. So enjoy your lunch, and I will see you again at session 2. Thank you very much.